You're watching SuckProfessor. Hello, everybody. It's me, Hank. I'm joined by
James.
It's October, James. James, you got your Halloween costume picked out?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a pasty white nerd.
Me too.
Oh.
Great. Welcome to The Wolves show breakdown, everybody. Our review after watching season 1 of Raised by Dances with Wolves on HBO. New people, you can probably tell we're not the most serious review show, but we do take our opinions seriously. I mean, we're giving a good faith effort to share what we thought, but we don't have the encyclopedic knowledge, so there's probably going to be some details that some people find frustrating. Right?
So we're gonna be talking about from a season level, not from an episodic level.
What? No, scene by scene.
Okay.
From memory, the next 8 hours will be us fumbling through. So there's a boy.
I've got the script for the first 5 episodes.
Okay.
We'll take turns reading lines.
But it's good to be back. Thank you to everybody who stays subscribed and our SuckProfessor family of heroes. James, you've been handling the COVID crisis well?
There's a crisis?
Well, it's the new normal. Crisis is normal now. So just slowly freaking out and being scared and anxiety-ridden. And then our grandparents are slowly dying.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of God's plan.
Yeah. I've got other things worrying about.
Okay, I know. Well, we're lucky enough to stay indoors and keep it safe.
I can work remotely. I don't have to worry about losing my job and having no money and having no health care and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty darn lucky.
You forgot to mention all the back rubs I give you while you sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Let's get into it. I just want to quickly mention, though, that I've been messing around on Twitch. Twitch.tv/winnersandlosers. Everybody listening's invited to come on by. It's a new thing for me. I don't know if I'm good at it or not, but it fits animation and video games and politics and the way you can just sort of, the way I do my other podcasts, Winners and Losers, is I do like a political show. It's really lefty, super lefty politics. So if you're not into that, you're probably not going to enjoy it. But if you like shows like Majority Report or etc., you might like what I'm saying on there. But anyway. Come on over to twitch.tv/winnersandlosers. Everybody, I'm going to be doing some gaming, maybe some Rocket League. There's this other game, Hades, that I've been wanting to play. So, any advice for a young Twitch streamer, James?
Just keep doing it until Mr. Beast comes and drops $5,000 on you.
What's Mr. Beast? Is that like the Tooth Fairy, but with money?
No, he's like one of the biggest YouTubers there is. He goes around. A lot of YouTubers make so much money that they can, and to have sponsorships and stuff, they can throw money around like crazy. So they do video montages oftentimes where they go to like really small Twitch channels where there's like nobody watching and donates like a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 just to see like the mind-blowing reaction on camera because they then monetize that for their own content.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I kind of remember that. By the way, I'm not on camera yet. I need to lose a little weight. I've decided because I have body image problems, but I do put my shrimp on camera, so you get to enjoy seeing little shrimp running around in a shrimp aquarium, and it's actually extremely charming and delightful.
How do you know they're not self-conscious about their weight? Because that's why they're always swimming.
Because they're invertebrates. You saying they're always working out?
Well, that's the Jim Gaffigan thing, the whale joke.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, Jim Gaffigan can suck the shrimp out of my poop, okay? All right, let's talk about Dances with Wolves. Raised by Wolves.
Yes.
HBO program by the famous Ridley Scott, right?
Yeah.
The guy responsible for Sigourney Weaver's career. Like, what that was like a thing that was really made me mad.
Technically, Tom Cruise's career too, if you count Legend as his first big thing.
Motherfucker, more like Legend Impossible. That was. I wish I should have deleted that from the. So when our show hit HBO and we saw, every sci-fi show, I'm filled with hope, like a parent. I'm like, oh, hope this one doesn't die at age 2. You know, like. This looked great. And then I saw Ridley Scott, and I was like, fuck yeah, we got some big things going on here. It better not be as bad as that goddamn Interstellar, though. Believe me, the guy wouldn't put his hand out in front of a snake on an alien planet. Give me a break. And
Interstellar?
I don't know. Prometheus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was a really cool wide shot of a cool ship.
Okay.
That movie was lame. Anyway, so... Nevertheless, Ridley Scott's made enough great movies, and but I would say Raised by Wolves, after seeing the entire season, has kept both of our attention. I was pretty impressed by it. There's definitely some confusing stuff, and as I described, and then I'm going to let you talk. As I described it, it's heavy. Why am I repeating some? I told you when we were talking about this a few days ago. it felt very dense in terms of metaphors and things that don't always make sense, that that they're going to try to explain eventually, maybe not, potential multiple explanations. So they're really being, like, who's the special orphan, who's the special boy going to be. It felt like literature. It felt like I was reminded by how dumb I am watching it. Maybe this is giving it too much credit, but I felt like I had just read like a book about literature. And even though especially like in high school, you hate reading literature because you're just told to, but actually those books become literature because they're really good books. And this felt similar to that in that I was like glad that I'd gotten through it, but I know how dumb I am and that I don't fully understand it. Your turn.
No, I think it does pull heavily from certain literature and certain symbolism, and like the first time I heard "Raised by Wolves," I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know it was sci-fi or anything to that nature. Mm-hmm. And the first question I asked was, "Is this about Rome?" Because when I hear the words "raised by wolves," I think of the story of Romulus and Remus, who are the two famous twin boys who, and I don't know the story perfectly. It's been ages since I took Latin class.
All right, do your best.
But it was basically two boys who were raised. I don't know what happened to the parents, but they were raised by wolves.
The parents were raised by wolves.
Ah, yes.
Into food.
But eventually they grew up into young adults, and something about them wanting to see a sign from God. One of them saw like 12 birds fly overhead. One saw 6. Each one interpreted as their message from God to build a shining city on a hill. Romulus and Remus got into an argument, and I think Romulus killed Remus. I think Remus is the one who died. Okay. And Romulus went on to create Rome as we know it, which of course never really happened. That's just a stupid story. But kind of like more than midway through the series, they find something that, and I won't say who they is because we haven't really explained anything
Raised
yet.
by Wolves series, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
They find something that kind of connects back directly to that story.
To the Romulus. Oh yeah. Oh, we're gonna spoil the hell out. Yeah, we're not worried about. I mean, we don't want people to.
Right, but again, like wolves, the mother creature.
Wait before you move on from Romulus and Remus, the what's like the
parallels to the show?
Not the parallels to the show. What's the takeaway, the kind of moral parable you're supposed to get from Romulus? Like, what was it, hubris, or is there one even? Is it like
I don't think there
one of them was
one.
too arrogant?
Because
or is it just a story?
I don't recall anything from the story happening where Romulus was held accountable for his acts of violence and the death of Remus, or that he ever felt guilt or remorse, or that he paid a price of any measure. I don't remember. Maybe there is. I just don't recall the story that adequately.
Had Remus won, it'd be called Rome, not Rome. Right?
Exactly. Okay. Actually, that's a really good point. Romulus, Rome. Hey, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played Age of Empires. All right, so now back to the show then.
Well, the thing about the name Raised by Wolves is almost indicative of one species being a human raised by something that is inherently not human.
Right.
Which is what's happening here. And just to kind of give the story, it's about a bunch of human children who start out as fetuses. They are whisked away to a planet called Kepler-22 by 2 androids.
With android babysitters.
By 2 androids, yeah.
Yeah, that was my joke going to be, is that they're terrible babysitters.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean...
they let them die, and then they let snakes come out and fucking turn them in.
Okay, well, that happens a little while later. But,
I would fire my babysitter if she gave birth to a flying snake.
Yeah, so, that's way ahead.
I know.
But
we're not doing it in order, it's okay.
Yeah, but basically, they are sent on a mission by someone at the start of the series. We don't know who it is, we find out later. But their prime directive is to be mother and father to these fetuses, which they incubate using the mother's body, in a sense. Not inside her, but she's feeding nourishment or such to it by connecting tubes and whatnot.
Right. Really, all those tubes, it's sort of like nipples. They're just 6-foot-long nipples.
Right, and that's what I was about.
A nipple is just a short tube.
Right, and I was about to get to that, too, because there's a scene in one of the episodes, well, actually it's a thumbnail for an episode, where it shows her laying down with a series of, 6 nipples.
Yeah.
But in my experience, I looked for it very intently in the show. I never saw that in the show. So they do these wolf symbolism like that.
Yeah.
They have them sitting outside back to back, staring in either direction, doing lookouts like wolves in front of a cave protecting the cubs. They howl in pain, and actually they stopped howling after the second episode.
Oh, when the kids would die and stuff?
Yeah.
They would go,
yeah, it was their sign of grief and distress, and yet they stopped doing that, almost as though that they were learning to turn from wolves protectors back into human, to emulate humanity, which is what they've been trying to do from the very beginning.
I didn't even notice that they stopped howling. Maybe they knew that they had to be quiet now, because isn't that after the ship crashed or something? I don't know. Milk. There's all kinds of milk.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like in a kind of a milk is sort of disgusting in lots of ways, but it is truly nourishing, beautiful. So if you're a filmmaker talking about like rebirth and new starts and mothers and fathers and who's who and who's what and different species and potentially new versions of humanity, you're not going to be able to resist using milk a lot. The android blood is white. There's always sort of white spill and white stuff all over the place. Well, of course, white fluids plays another crucial role in reproduction.
So it's not technically milk. But.
Well, I know. I'm just saying the whiteness of the liquid is they didn't do purple. We're not sponsored by the Flintstones, party of grape juice or something like that.
So what's the overall arc?
Oh my God! Don't do this to the audience. Okay, let me try. These androids land and they have a bunch of babies, but also appearing in the solar system is the Mithraic, which are like worship a god named Sol. So I assume it's like Saul Goodman.
Yeah, so S-O-L.
S-O-L. Yeah. Lots of symbolism built into the sun, the Sol. It's their god. Later on, I'm just jumping into a detail here. We see those like tarot card things that are kind of like, I don't know, they're like baseball cards, or like
metal plates.
They're sort of, and one of them though is the shape of their logo, which is sort of has wavy sun rays around a center. It's uniformly radial. It's radial symmetrical, but one of the tarot cards has a space between the hole in the middle and all the wavy bits, and all the wavy bits are spermies. At least they really resemble that. And that's actually even more of like another layer of the sun, the birth, the hole, the center, sperm coming from all directions, to also that could evolve into a symbol that looks like a sun too. I don't know. I just found that interesting detail. Small scales and big scales. So then they, the Mithraic crash. I don't remember what caused their ship to crash.
Oh, that was a big one.
The two
Mother did it.
Mother did it?
She attacked the ship. She went nuts.
Oh.
Came up onto the ship and just started blasting her sonic waves across everyone. And really, I mean, there's a lot we haven't established before we get to that, though.
Yeah, I'm definitely messing this up. She's a necromancer, which is a tool, a weapon of war built. It's a lady who does yoga, who flies around in the sky and screams people into powder. Built by the Mithraic powers, or we don't know much about the Earth history, but do we know what year it is? Is it like
not really, but we know that there was a war that forced them to flee the Earth because there was a war between the atheists and the Sol Mithraic worshippers.
Yeah. So there's like
they created the Ark. Which is the giant ship that they used to go to Kepler 22, because there was a prophecy in their religion that related back to Kepler 22.
And but it also seems like Earth is environmentally destroyed too, and war has ravaged it, and they're saving humanity by getting off the planet.
Yeah, every shot we had at Earth resembled like the future of Earth from Terminator.
Yeah, like Earth in 2022.
Yeah, nothing but war and rubble and explosions and soldiers and screaming and death.
Where we're aggressively headed as a society here. Yeah. Right. So she was repurposed. We don't find this out early in the series, but she was re-engineered, like a guy took apart a Tesla and turned it into a Mac, and turned her into the mother for these, the incubators, feeding with the long nipple tubes to the people. So she's got special powers that Father doesn't have.
Right. It was a brilliant atheist.
His name was Campion.
I believe it was, yeah.
I just saw it in a recap I would just watch.
Yeah. Well, she said that she names her preferred child after her creator.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he was like a tech guy. He was in the atheist resistance or whatever they were.
The interesting thing about that, though, is that her memories... Because when he sets her off on the path... Yeah. To go to Kepler 22, he doesn't wipe her memory, but he blocks her memories and puts them into storage so she can retrieve them later if she devises a way to do so. Right. So she didn't remember his name because that memory was locked away, and yet she was able to recall that memory subconsciously in order to name the weakest child that was born from the fetus that died and that was resuscitated before her. Oh. She named that one. She thought that one was special. That one had some purpose greater than the rest of them, and she named that child Campion.
And that's the kid who survives, because the other children die off. So Tally is like one of the...
Tally's the one that goes down the pit.
She goes down a pit, and she keeps making returns as some sort of either she survived or they made a copy of her or something like that. Yeah, Anyway, do you want me to keep summarizing?
Can you talk about like the first episode, like the children... The first batch.
The first batch...
Like, the first batch of pancakes never works out.
Oh. Did I miss a whole batch? I thought they just slowly died off in the first...
Why do they die off?
Malnutrition?
No.
Lack of nutrition?
The androids landed on the planet, and they were going around, and they were testing certain things to find out what would be a good food source.
The yams were radioactive.
Right, and the radioactive nature of the yams is a cumulative one. They're not yams, but whatever they are.
Potatoes.
The crop circles, because they plant them in circles.
Yeah.
But they have a cumulative radioactive effect that kills in the long term over time. So they weren't able to detect right off the bat that these were dangerous, and they only found out later on that the radioactive property emerges later on.
Okay. Was that the... final, that's all we need to know, like, ... that's the only explanation? Or was there also some sort of, like, they weren't programmed to be good parents? Like,
well, I mean, they were programmed to be caretakers,
yeah.
But they had no way of knowing that they were inadvertently feeding poison to the children. But for some reason, Campion is immune to the radioactivity.
Okay.
We don't know why.
Right. All right, cool. So, is that all there was in the first? So we don't need to do one episode.
Well, I mean, we should mention that the Mithraic come down. So basically what happens is all the children start dying off.
Yeah.
And the androids look at each other and says, okay, well, we failed. We don't have any more fetuses because something happens to the second batch of fetuses and they can't create more children.
They had 12 to start.
Yeah, Campion messes with them or something. We don't know why he does that, but he does, and they all die off. So Father, being the more sympathetic of the two characters, basically says to Mother, we have come here for one purpose. We have failed in our purpose. There is nothing more we can do here. Campion deserves to be with his own people. He deserves to be with people that can understand him and give him a life that he deserves. Yeah. So I'm going to reach out to the radio on the ship, and I'm going to contact the Mithraic to have them come down and take Campion with them. Oh, wow. Mother freaks out and says, absolutely not. You're not going to do that. They get into this big argument, but Father does it anyway. So the Mithraic come down, and that's when the conflict starts. So they threaten to take Campion and the children away, I believe, and Mother goes into battle mode and goes up onto their ship and starts screaming these sonic waves that makes them like explode into bloody chunks that just kind of suspend in midair.
Yeah, she smoothies them up.
Okay, and she forces the entire Ark, which is the gigantic ship that they took from Earth to Kepler 22, and just crashes it into the landscape of the planet.
Okay, right on. So now the Ark is down, and we've got a whole nother cast of characters that are the survivors of the Ark crash, including two people who were sort of stowaways who faked their identities by stealing. They were in the army against... They were like fighters and street fighter, whatever. They had some training, and they were sort of,
We should mention Mother steals the children from the Ark.
Oh yeah, Mother brings back children from the Ark.
But these are not like small children. These are children who are old enough to know that they have been taken and that they already are, I don't want to say brainwashed, but brainwashed to believe in soul.
Well, the oldest one is probably 14 or 15 or something.
Some are much younger, but they're all fervent soul believers because they were raised that way.
They were raised up on, right. And to be siblings for Campion, because that's a pretty messed up way to grow up with on a freaky planet with two freaky mom and dad, and you're just the only kid running around eating radiated yams.
Yeah, and even though Mother was created by the Mithraic, she was reprogrammed by the atheist programmer, so now she is inherent of atheism, and she forbids any talk of soul in her house.
Right. Yeah, they're a little sensitive about that stuff. Don't be bringing that Mormon bullshit into my home.
Now I kidnapped you. You're going to believe what I believe.
Well, isn't that why you have children, to raise them to hate what you hate?
Yeah, that's the one thing about. There's a lot about religion I don't agree with or like about, but the fact that people think that, well, if I'm Christian and I have a baby, my baby's Christian. It's like, no, religion is a choice you make. Religion is not something you impose on someone else.
Well, it is literally imposed on children because it's hard to talk adults into it. Like, you have to be a kid to believe it. I mean, that's drastically oversimplifying. I don't mean to deny anybody their strongly held, fervent religious beliefs. Go for it.
Yeah, but I was watching this thing on an old episode of Unsolved Mysteries of a woman who was abandoned at birth. So she never knew who her mother and father were, where she came from, or anything like that. And she was lamenting into the camera, saying things like, I'll never know who my true family is. I'll never know what my true religion is. It's like, woman, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Yeah. It's like, that's like saying I'll never know what my family dog would have looked like. Well, I guess that's more rational than saying I don't know what my true religion is. That's for you to decide. That's not, you don't inherit religion. It's not genetic. It has nothing to do with your family.
Yeah, using the word true there is kind of weird. It's just like, I want to know what, it doesn't. That episode is called Raised by Muskrats.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know how we got off on that religion stuff, but
because the show's about religion and atheism.
Oh, I know that. I'm just trying to think of the specific detail that we were on.
Because the mother is an atheist and she forbids the children from speaking about soul in their house, even though they were raised to believe that they are soul followers.
Correct. Now that's where we are. Okay. So the you go now. I'm still lost.
Okay. Well, you were talking about the two humans on Earth who had that procedure done.
Oh yeah. So I'm trying not to get too mired into details. Those are very important characters. I don't know their names, of course. The guy, is he in the Vikings?
He's Travis Fimmel. Yeah, he's Ragnar Lothbrok.
Okay, I knew I recognized him from that.
And he acts just like Ragnar in the show. He has the same voice, the same inflection, the same movement, the same... It's like he's stuck in Viking mode.
Yeah. It'd be funny if Chewbacca got cast in other roles and he just is like... But he's on like Days of Our Lives.
Or the guy from the Goonies who played Sloth. He's like, okay, this is a romantic scene.
He's a new physician on ER. He's a pancreas surgeon. Baby Ruth. Anyway, so those two characters, though, they had used some sort of Minority Report technology where they swapped their face, so their identity, they were able to pretend to be soul believers, and they weren't. And that's how they wound up on that ship. It was a form of escaping when everybody was sort of in this... They're all sort of refugees from Earth. Both groups are.
They murdered the two people and had an android reconstruct their facial features to emulate them, and then took the passes for the Ark from those two people so they could escape Earth.
Yes, and they took the identities of two parents who had a kid named Paul. Mm-hmm. And that boy is also introduced as a very intelligent, potentially being the child spoken of in the prophecy. Mm-hmm. That some orphan will rise to... something, I don't know. But there's multiple orphans.
Right. And this is where it started kicking me in the head, the whole Romulus and Remus theory, is that you have Campion on one side, who later becomes prone to bouts of violence when he finds out he's not quite as special as he thought he was. Yeah. And he befriends this Paul child later on. And this Paul child shows Campion just how unspecial he is by being smarter, quicker-witted, more capable than Campion ever was.
Builds a cool trap.
Yes, he builds a cool trap, but more importantly, we see in two different occasions, Paul is building this massive city, one of which he did in like a VR stasis mode, where they were like they were asleep because they were traveling through long distances. The other one, he's actually building it out of rocks, and he says, this is the Mithraic city that I see in my visions. This is where we are going to live and lead from. Wow. And that's like Romulus choosing where to build the great city of Rome.
Mm.
And Remus being Campion, or actually in this case... Romulus would be Campion and Remus would be Paul, because Romulus is the one who's the violent one who kills Remus, and we know Campion has much more capacity for violence.
Oh, yeah, I guess they both have capacity for violence.
Paul?
Paul shoots somebody at the very end. Not to say that means you have capacity. I mean, people would do things under stress. I think just saying, if I would shoot somebody if they were attacking you, James, does that mean I have capacity? I think, I guess it would.
But Paul's more compassionate. He has a little albino mouse that he cares for.
Yeah.
It shows that he nurtures and cares for life. But then again, so does Campion, who goes vegetarian and decides to only
Campion is terrified. Yeah, he hates killing anything, and he doesn't want to kill the human-faced monkey creatures running around.
Right. But once he finds that he is not quite the special child that he thought he was, and once he sees competition and he sees that the love of mother could possibly be fading from him and his favor could be fading, he starts getting violent and angry.
Does it get violent?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, I'm trying to offer Campion compassion only because we can't make assumptions on exactly what he wants and knows out of life, because children that age are changing constantly. They're developing. They're in a developmental thing, and they're influenced by their upbringing and their genetics and their environment. So he is changing and reacting to very stressful circumstances with everything happening around him. It's a pretty unnatural way for a human being to evolve or to be raised, meaning we have millions of years of evolution asking our DNA is forged by those millions of years, and even a few more 100 years in the future. And we're still talking about human being bodies that are essentially African plains 50,000 years ago or something like that. Although maybe they had genetic variability, which is certainly plausible in a science fiction show, especially about this kind of technology. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, I think you're right. Like, he did show like aggression and he was frustrated by it all. But I read that not so much as him because I think he thought he was special, but only because he was the only one, and it was a weird way to grow up. Not so much that he was taught that. Did they ingrain in him that he was? Were they giving him like indoctrination sort of stuff to make him think he was special? Or is that just a natural thing you'd get out if you just never played with other children until you finally did? And
he had a lot of reason to think he was special because he was the only one who didn't die.
Yeah, no.
And that they would tell him he's the only one that you can eat the radioactive stuff and that you're the smartest one and all that kind of thing because you're really the only one. And there was that particular scene where he's trying to be like an older brother figure and treats Paul as though he's inferior in front of Mother and puts the stick puzzle out. And he goes, okay, now, Paul, by moving one stick, create 3 squares. And don't worry if it takes you too long. It took me... Mother, how long did it take me? It took you 2 minutes and 35 seconds, Paul. Campion? Yeah. And he goes, oh, don't worry if it takes you longer than that. You know, it takes some people a lot of times. And Paul's like, oh, actually, if I move this over here, oh, boom, is that it? And she's like, excellent work, Paul. It took you 17 seconds. And he's like, no, he cheated. He cheated. And then runs off.
Oh, whoa, it's like Campion's in the room.
Yes.
Wow.
Little Campion. I hate Campion.
Why do you hate him?
Because he's a little brat.
They're all little brats.
And then he gets threatened. Doesn't he knock down Paul at one point and like punch him in the face and they have to pull him off of him?
I think that's right.
That's the violent part.
But then Paul goes in. I mean, I think they have brotherly spats too. I mean, I don't think the show is intending Campion to be a total I don't think anybody's supposed to be an absolute anything. I think that's partly to keep us from figuring it out. I don't think they want us to believe that Campion is automatically just the worst of them all or has these worst instincts that are now being provoked because he's threatened. That might turn out to be how it is. I just feel like I think the filmmakers are intentionally making sure not to overdo that, but you're making a good case. Those details are accurate. So there's probably even more that I'm forgetting, I'm sure.
The next series of important details to say is when Mother activates her kill mode, she goes into a programming T-pose where your legs are together and your arms are flat out, and she flies around like that.
She puts in an eyeball. She has to switch out her eyeballs.
Well, she doesn't switch out her eyeballs, I don't think, because at the very beginning she had the attack eyeballs in. Oh. And I think she realized that was the ability that she had to go into that mode posed a potential threat to the children because she was undergoing changes where her emotions were not exactly in control. So she did the responsible thing and said, I'm only going to enable myself to go into this mode under certain circumstances. So I think she took the eyes from another android and implanted those into her head and then kept her war eyes in a little bag around her neck.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So she only had one set of eyes starting out. She took it from I think when the Mithraic came in and tried to take the children or take Campion from her, she killed that particular android, and I think she got the eyes from him.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. So, all right. The Mithraic guy, there's so much in this. They come across like a weird hexagon-y cubicle. It's not cubicle. But you know what I mean? It's like a work thing. I was like, all right. Peter, what's happening? Listen, I'm going to ask you about your TPS reports. No, there's so much mystery, and so they're on a sojourn. They're like walking across the desert. They're leaving
because their ship has been destroyed.
Although you still think there'd be a ton of resources still buried in that ship.
So they know that their children are being held by these androids. They can't get back to them. They're trying to find out where they are, and the children have these tracking things installed in their feet, like these microchips, which Mother somehow knew about and was able to extract and pull out of them.
That's right.
And she put them. I think she dropped them down in like a pit or something. So they were chasing signals that weren't even indicative where the children were to begin with. But in doing so, they came across this thing in the desert.
Exactly. Yeah. So meanwhile, what's the Norseman guy? The main guy.
Magnus?
Is it Magnus?
It's something like Magnus or Magnor or something. Yeah. They don't really say each other's names very often.
No, not really. Which is good writing. Because people in real life don't use each other's names. You know what I mean, James? James? Yeah. That was obviously predictable. But these two interlopers, is that the right word?
Yeah.
They are getting caught up in this group too, meaning they have to maintain this identity that otherwise if they get revealed they'll be in big trouble. But he actually starts to believe that he might be special. He might be ordained somehow by the great powers that be. So he actually during the course of the season takes on kind of like a messiah complex. More than I would say it's more that than embraces their religion and just like wants to be like a good Scientologist. Like he actually thinks he might be the one that they're all supposed to follow.
He thinks he's the boy of the prophecy.
Yeah, there's a whole episode or two where he sort of takes over by defeat. I don't know how do they get the other king out of or the other guy who's in charge out of the way.
So they come across a thing in the desert.
Yeah.
And
like a fire, he burns or something.
Yeah, they camp in front of it for a long period of time because they believe that there's some sort of a message that's supposed to be disseminated to them from this thing. They believe that this is the physical embodiment of soul on the planet.
Yeah.
And I think... Yeah, I mean, at some point, he forces one of the children at a later point in time to stick his whole arm inside this hole because he sticks a tree branch into the hole and it comes back and it's flaming on fire.
Yeah, that was way after he'd already...
Yeah, that's what I said, way later on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the Eminence guy ends up exploding into flames because I think they get into a fight and I think he holds the guy against the object.
Something like that. Yeah,
and he explodes into flames.
So now there's a power vacuum, and there's a hierarchy that's already there. And this woman wants to be the leader because she's the second in line behind the other guy, but in kind of like the classic sort of the real leader is whoever the people follow, not who says they're the leader. So everybody else kind of goes, well, actually, we think this guy is the leader because we've just seen him do some weird magic shit. So he gets to sort of usurp the order of succession, I guess would be the right word, and it frustrates that lady too. But so he becomes their leader. They start following him around.
But why does he do it? Is he doing it because he still is an atheist and he believes that this gives him more leverage over hiding his identity, or is there another reason?
I think it starts out as advantageous because he's in a better position no matter what at that point. But he's also started to suspect that he might be. Does he hear words?
Exactly where I was going. He is starting to hear voices in his head that is changing him into thinking that soul is real.
Right.
So he goes from an atheist he's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. So there's another wolf reference for you.
Sure.
And he starts drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even think of like when we talk about the atheists as them being like what a 2020 atheist who just is like, yeah, obviously it's all sort of stupid, kind of like they're also sort of their own sect in a way. They have a belief set structure. I just think that it's so, like the word disease. Everybody has their own working definition of what that word means, and the same with the word atheist. And I think in the context of a show like this, yes, they're atheists. They reject the idea that there's soul. They seem to emphasize science and stuff. So it's probably the group I would align myself with, but they also have a history, they have a fervency to their beliefs. I mean, they've been fighting a war on different sides on Earth, so like you're gonna. I'm not sure what point I'm trying to make.
I wouldn't necessarily say that science is what separates them because the Mithraic are the religious ones and they have the greatest technology on the planet. They're the ones that created the giant arc ships and the necromancers and all that.
No, I wasn't saying the others reject science. I just mean that the atheists, I just feel like I recall they're like the way they were raising the kids and one of the parents said something about science being important. I'm probably making that up. I'm not even sure what point I'm making. I just feel like that's a word that people generally have their own definition of. And I'm always trying to like not just bottle my analysis up behind my specific definition of the word atheist.
I got the impression though that the necromancers were like ancient creations from the age-old Mithraic and they don't know where they got that knowledge or where it's sourced from or how to replicate it or anything like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so
it's very vague in that sense.
And the reason I'm bringing, the show sort of scrambles everybody in a way. I think like the atheists aren't as they're faced with challenges that make them maybe think there's greater powers and potential things of faith. They're blending kids, meaning like the kids who they brought from the ship with Campion. The androids themselves go on almost like an a discovery of some sort of religion or faith, if you need to use that word. Or, you know what I mean? Like from a writer perspective, you could see like you'd say, well, the atheists are going to have to go into some sort of, journey away from atheism, or at least through some sort of evolution of their atheism, as well as the religious folks are probably also going to have a similar vector. At least similar in terms of not sticking to what they already have.
Or if they both find out together, they're both wrong.
That's what I'm saying. Like it could, I suspect, just to get to a prediction, that they're all being influenced by some greater power on the planet that they don't. None of them identify yet.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping we talked about next.
That seems kind of obvious.
Because one thing we kind of skipped over is that the planet that they're on has certain characteristics to it that we haven't really touched on.
Yeah.
One of which is they have like gigantic, like almost like machine drilled holes going down to what appears to be the core of the Earth. They can't see the bottom of it. They know that heat rises up out of it, and if you fall into it, you're not coming back. They also know that there are giant skeletal remains all over the planet that looks like these enormous, just gargantuan, ancient serpents of some sort.
Yeah.
But they never see any living ones around, but the bones are indicative of them having been there in the past, obviously. No one just came down and planted those to seed faith into their minds, like some people would say.
That'd be the pranky aliens, but they're not there yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that all the children in Batch 1, almost all the children died of the radioactive crops, one in particular did not. And that was the Talia girl who went over and fell into one of the pits. And later on in the series, actually by episode 2 or 3 or something like that, not only the children, but Father starts seeing not the ghost, but the representation of the little child running off and giggling into the woods.
Yeah.
And multiple characters keep seeing this, and multiple characters keep hearing this.
And the little doll that she carries around.
Right.
The stick thing.
So it leads you to believe that there is not something religious or supernatural happening here, but there is some creation, some being or entity on the planet who is of a higher evolutionary path than humans and androids alike, who is speaking in the minds of this of Travis Fimmel and even Father, between android and human alike, who is manipulating and pushing them towards a path to which we don't quite know what the end means is. Yeah. All we know about this thing is that it fears the other side of the planet. It tries to drive them from not going to the tropical zone, which is what they all seem to want to get to because there's not a lot of food or resources to be had where they landed.
Yeah.
So they want to go there, and they're on their way there, but whatever is speaking into the mind, which eventually speaks to Paul, it tells Paul, do not go to the tropical zone.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Is that around where he finds the cave with the drawings?
That's exactly when it happens. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So, okay. Meanwhile, is that what you wanted to say about the planet speaking to everybody?
Yes, there is something going on, and we can theorize that whatever it is also controlling that weird geometric shape in the desert.
Right, because it's probably connected.
Right, somehow. Because that was speaking to him in his mind as well. Magnus's mind.
Yeah.
Or the fake Magnus.
The fake Magnus, yeah. Man, see, this show gets so confused. I do feel like I'm in English class trying to talk about Dorian Gray or some shit right now.
So probably the most important thing we should go about now is the what do you call that pod that Mother keeps going to?
Oh, okay, that's what I was going to get into. Mm-hmm. Not the teardrop shuttlecraft that they have.
No, the whistle, cool, I call it.
The whistle. Yeah, it does look like a whistle, right? Their Prius doesn't have leather seats like mine does. Fucking losers. But yes, so she goes off on kind of scouting patrols because she flies around in her T shape. She puts her arms out. I do that outside, but I just end up clotheslining neighbors out there walking their dogs, and fuck you! You get out of my way, bitch.
6 feet apart.
Yeah, my wingspan a little over 6 feet. So I spin to create a barrier.
I gotta pull that big ripcord on you too at the front door and just let you go off.
James, grab the loop. I'm ready to go. And off I go. And anyway, so she goes out on it, and she's very powerful, obviously, but she spots in this wooded area, which we returned to a bunch of times, is it a crashed ship from the Mithraic? Right?
Yes, it's one of one of the stasis pods. It's what the people laid in, because basically to travel through space at a high distant point of time, they're not unconscious. They all exist in this simulation world where they're mentally connected and interacting with one another while their bodies are asleep.
Okay, right. But is that the thing she finds, was that a separate vessel from the giant mothership? But
it was part. I think it was part of it because there was already a man in it.
I know. But I'm saying, did it crash when the big mothership crashed?
Oh yes.
Or was it came from the mothership way before and had crashed on it?
No, I think it came from the crash of the whole ship.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe it's not that important as to how that particular ship. But anyway, she finds it in the woods. Yeah. It's wreckage, and it has a working portal pod that she can lay down in, although you're pretty vulnerable. Sleeping is very vulnerable, or being unconscious in nature. You and I are out camping. That's why you got to sit watch for bears. That's right. Or just sleep in a tent and hope the bear is confused by the fabric. But you're so vulnerable while you're sleeping. It's one of the animal things all animals have to deal with.
That's why
you wake up ready to fight. Yeah, wolves have their den. Anyway, so she's extremely exposed. That's why I'm having that random thought. She's so exposed when she lays down on that little padded like bed thing. But she plugs this thing into her USB port. It's USB-D. It's really far in the future. Yeah. And you don't even have to flip it in order to get it to fit. It's actually brilliant technology. And so she's able to sort of lawnmower man her way through... no, not Lawnmower Man. I'm thinking of the movie with Michael Rising Sun, where he plays a tech executive in the late 90s. This is like when email was an impressive thing. There's a whole series in that movie. What's it called?
You've Got Mail.
Not You've Got Mail. Come on, James. We're trying to reach a younger audience. I'm talking about Catherine Zeta-Jones as his husband.
She's a husband? No, Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas, yeah.
What about him, though?
It's in this movie where he's a tech guy, and but they have this ridiculous sequence where they do a lot of stuff with like people invading their internet network or their computer network, and you can see like an avatar of a person moving from one folder to like one area to another. Mm-hmm. It's like late 90s. It's actually a decent movie, but really really like outdated graphics and like internet. It would work by like you would jump from one folder to the next folder structure. You wouldn't travel slowly so that the filmmaker can get a good... I don't know why I'm rambling about that. It had nothing to do with any of this. But she's in this virtual world now, and she's sort of going through the old files, basically, right? But it's also sort of esoteric, because it wakens some memories up. We get to finally learn about her creator, the guy who put her together.
She finds out in doing so that there's somebody else who has logged into the simulation. Oh. So she says, "Computer, is it you who has logged into the simulation and accessed these memories?" And it was like, "No, it is not me." And then she says, "Wait a minute. Is the person still in the simulation?" "Yes." And then she finds that she meets her creator in there.
Oh, okay.
And then she speaks to him and she goes, because the whole thing about it is that when he restores her memories and she recalls all the things that transpire between her and him, she got the impression that he was actually in love with her, that he had some sort of more than admiration for her. It was like actual human love.
I feel the same way about all my woodworking projects. Mm-hmm. I just want to kiss them and turn them into Android babies.
Oh, yeah. I remember like 10 years ago when the microwave and I got married. It was pretty good.
Is that why the microwave and I keep saying I shouldn't be cheating on you every time I open it?
Yes.
I shouldn't be cheating on James, my husband. Mm-hmm. Band of electromagnetic radiation.
It's had so many buns in the oven.
Buns in the oven.
I keep eating my children though like an evil wolf.
Yeah. And James does eat the way a wolf would, like a duck, just swallowing its food with lurching its face forward as quickly as possible.
You have to unhinge your jaw.
Yeah, I know. It's horrifying. And then the shape of a burrito slides through James's entire body, like a snake that just ate a turtle. All right. So the inside this world, and you fill in, I'm sure I'm getting shit wrong, but she ends up banging her creator. They get crushies on each other.
Virtually banging them.
And they smush. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They have a little moment, which, hey, you know what? I had AOL in the 90s. I know what it's like to be near the internet and have arousal. Your turn to talk.
But you only get 24 hours? And then you got to wait for another disc to come in the mail?
It's $2.99 per inch.
Yeah.
Made it worse.
So the weird thing that happens, not that all this other stuff isn't weird.
That's why it cost me $5.98.
Oh, nice. I get it.
Math joke.
Got it. So she starts showing physical signs of pregnancy. Even though she's not human, she doesn't have human anatomical structures or anything like that. And she starts having to nurture and plug blood plasma from other creatures into her own stomach to feed this growing fetus, which she believes is the true intent of her mission. She is told by her creator that Campion and the other children, including the children that she stole from the Ark, are of no significance, and their only purpose was to prepare her for the true trial, which was the baby that grows within her now.
They were practice.
Yes.
Yeah. That's freaky.
So she and Father are kind of like being further and further disconnected as time goes along, because Father does not understand this like weird emotional mental journey she's going on. He doesn't know that she's communing with their creator, or where this strange transformation has come from. So he is becoming more and more distant, and
she's worried about what she'll do to the living children, right? She's actually conscious of that. She doesn't want to hurt them, and so she's kind of cautious. There's the great line where she says something like, "I still want to protect my children, but I also need to feed my fetus.
Yes, which is horrifying.
Some line like that where you just go, whoa,
and
Jesus.
One thing that bears mentioning is that while the children and all the different members of the Mithraic ship were in their stasis, one of the male crew members woke up early, believed he was hearing voices from Sol, which is, could be anything. It could be the planet that did it to him, who knows, as they were flying over it. And he began to systematically rape the women, including a young child, who was in the stasis pods, which impregnated her, which is now one of the children that Mother is taking care of, and Mother is fostering her and trying to mentor her as she gets to the point where she's going to deliver the child.
So this is the prisoner.
Yes.
I missed this backstory. Like, I knew he had raped people. I guess he did it on the...
Yeah.
Okay.
And it turns out he was set to be executed not long before the ship was crashed by Mother.
Yeah.
So now he exists as this man. You never see his face. He's in this like giant metal helmet with spikes along the top.
The spikes are ridiculous. Let me just get it out of the way. You don't put spikes on a prisoner's helmet. Someone who can't see. Although it turns out he actually can kind of see through it a little bit or something.
Right.
But what are those spikes for? It looks really cool.
It's religious symbology.
It has a nice religious symbology thing. But all you have to do to fight back against the prison guard who has got you chained is dash your head forward or sideways. It is so risky to do that. You wouldn't put spikes on the helmet of a prisoner. Well, you'd put small inflatable bags.
They do have corks on them though. Like a bowl. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because he is never, in his natural state, he never gets near people. So he can't use it as an attack because he has an android that is assigned to him. And that android has a program in it that is connected to him such that if he gets more than, how many feet was it? It was less than 10 feet, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
It was an extraordinarily short distance, but if he got more than that distance away from the android, it would trigger the helmet to crush inward and just completely decimate his skull.
Yeah, that movie with Dolph Lundgren? Rutger Hauer, I think? There was a movie where it was like...
the Exploding Collars?
Yeah, Exploding Collars.
I don't remember what the movie was called, but I remember seeing it when I was really...
So two guys... and you don't know who else has the collar, but two guys figure out that there are the two... that are linked, and then they escape together, and they have to stay close to each other. Kind of like Money Train with Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes, where they're handcuffed together. Boy, do I have some fucking random memories.
So as Mother is looking for things to feed her fetus, she comes across him.
Yeah. And
she starts draining him of his blood.
Yeah. So he's tethered to her as like a feed bag, like a reverse colostomy bag or something. That's pretty weird, that whole scenario with this. Yeah. It's basically got like Bane's brother, like, oh, hello there, yeah, you may have my blood. I'm a space rapist.
Right. But even before all this weird stuff happens and she starts showing signs of pregnancy, the human Mithraics actually raid their camp.
Right.
And they're able to subdue Father. And I think Mother, they find out Mother's being connected to this machine, so they're able to wound her in some sense by creeping up on her and trying to attack her and drain her of her weird powers and things while she's in that pod. But they're able to infiltrate the camp and take the children back. And then Mother, and they like hit Mother in the chest with an axe, and it gets all bad and all that kind of stuff. But they basically reprogram Father, so he's now like a service bot. He doesn't have any of his humor or his love or affection or anything. Yeah. He's in there, but he can't act on it.
They just turned him back into a Roomba.
Pretty much, yeah. And Mother is basically strung up and incapacitated. Her eyes have been taken from her, and she really can't do anything other than just speak and make her case. But what happens? How do they flip the script back on them?
I don't remember. Are you asking me because you don't remember, or you have the answer?
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. I mean, I know Father, like, comes out of it some... I know they put Campion in the yam hut, and Paul was, like, throwing him food or something, or... I don't remember. But
I think what happens mainly is Ragnar Lothbrok, the Viking dude, starts absolutely going crazy. His wife doesn't feel like he is emotionally or mentally there anymore. He's losing his grip on reality.
She's much closer to their original mindset. Yeah.
She's starting to plan with the children to make an escape to get away from him. Meanwhile, he's having altercations with his own people and killing his own people in some cases.
His flock is getting smaller.
And they are starting to trust him less and less because he is clearly losing his mind.
Yeah.
And the mother and the children escape via the whistle to a far off area.
Right.
And then they eventually reconvene and meet up with mother and father again. And one of the children manages to reprogram father back to his original state by using the password "soul is the light," which
that's right.
Which he was tapping. Yeah, he was tapping out in Morse code with his finger the entire time.
Yeah, the older kid. He's kind of got like he knows how to use the computer, so to speak.
Right.
And there's also the human faced fellas running around.
Oh yeah,
on their hands.
Yeah, explain that.
Explain. I can use words. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be an explanation. But there's also a humanoid who lives on the planet that runs around. We see the person once in a cave when they invade his cave, and they're just investigating, and he like runs up the wall basically. So that's the first appearance. There might have been hints at, but then there's a moment where that guy tries to push mother into one of the holes as she's standing close to it, but she's got great sensory, she does yoga. So she flips it and she grabs his arm and she ends up killing him, right? And then we see his face. I remember they pull back the mask, like kind of the face covering he had, wearing like burlap looking fabrics, nothing refined like silk. But I thought that he looked a lot like I think this is in Prometheus, where they seed Earth with the DNA of one of those giant white dudes. I think they call them engineers. And he's like all muscles. He's like alien, freaky, pasty, white, huge body and huge bald head. I thought like the guy looked a lot like that. I don't know if that's a legit connection or not, but there's some sort of, this is where it gets really confusing, as if it's not already been confusing, but there's some sort of hint that he has a Neanderthal skull with him or something, and so they know but is it evolved? So they say these things are evolving backwards or something like that from humans, and also the art that Paul finds in that cave was like old hand silhouettes, but also there's like a person in a ship in that art, but it looks ancient, like it's been there for tens of thousands of years or something. It takes about 20 years for something to look faded, I guess, maybe even quicker. But so I don't really know what the residents of the planet are. Humanoid humans who are they from Earth, from some previous thing? Were they sent ahead? Is it parallel evolution where they just happen to be just like us? Is it the thing in sci-fi where you just all creatures are going to be human ape shaped because that's what actors are shaped like? Were they part of a different species that had been using the planet or that found the planet and they're also not native, but they've just been there longer? What's this devolving thing? I was just watching this recap just to try to jog a few memories loose, and the guy said you don't really, he made the point there's no real devolving. Evolution doesn't really, evolution just pressures, it's evolutionary pressures that make species change forward in time. But he also said, but this is also a sci-fi show, so who knows what kind of manipulation there might be going on that is explainable that way. But so did you have any understanding of that?
The showrunners described the planet as a haunted house full of mysteries and secrets that we're not intended to understand. All we know definitively is that and we haven't really talked too much about them yet, but there is this race of dog-like creatures that have raided the camp.
Yeah, and they eat them. Yeah.
Well, they've raided the camp trying to eat the children and trying to eat the people there because they're starving and they need a food source. But Mother was able to explode a bunch of them, and when Mother wasn't around, they were able to kill a couple of them or capture some of them using rudimentary traps and spears and weapons and things like that.
And turned them into carnitas.
Yes, and then they started eating them because they found out they couldn't eat the radioactive stuff that was killed the prior batch of children. Because now they had all the Mithraic children to watch out for, so they had to find a new food source. One of which was this fungus that grows in the pits because Campion can't bring himself to kill. He wants to be a vegetarian, but we don't know what that fungus could do. Maybe that fungus is what causes you to devolve.
Maybe it's conscious.
It could be. But what we do know for a fact from the show is that these creatures have weird human ears and weird human features in their faces, but they're clearly the bodies of dogs. And it is confirmed for us that they used to be human. That the dogs running around were devolved humans. They don't really explain how it happened, how long it took, whether there are other humans on the planet, whether the weird creature you spoke of, the humanoid man with a burlap sack over his face, how long he had been there, whether he was a crash-landed alien who was devolving himself, or that's how he naturally looked. We don't know those answers.
Okay, so there's a chance they're separate, but there's also a chance that the guy with the white bumpy face was related to the dog running human skinny dogs.
It seems
the climbers.
It seems unlikely that he would be related to them because it seems like the de-evolution would have happened over millennia, I would think.
Well, it could be. I was trying to say this one night we were talking about, but it could be like part of them de-evolutionized and then some of them didn't. Like there was a time where humans coexisted with multiple primate species that were not, there's one called Boisei. There's like something Boisei, and they were like these weird short little primates, and they had giant guts. I think they thought they were vegetable eaters. So they were almost like ruminant apes, and they were probably pretty goofy looking and funny and small. But like meanwhile, Neanderthals. I know. Kevin, what's the guy name? Paul Blart.
Kevin,
evolution cop.
Kevin James.
Kevin James. He's a little big. He would be too tall, but meanwhile, Homo sapiens are running around and Neanderthals are running around too. So I think there were probably some pretty compelling interactions too. We're like, oh, look, there's one of those fucking things. Like, but not in my kind of English. So sorry, I totally derailed all that. But,
so we don't know. The one thing that's kind of interesting is Mother also started having these visions of a certain place. And it was near a giant pit, and there was a bunch of people in robes that were like cultists. And in the middle of it was this miniature, like geometric chamber pot or something.
Same shape as the big thing they find in the desert, I think.
But much smaller.
But yeah.
And there was a creature in it. We don't know what it was, but its head was poking up through the top with a helmet of sorts on it, and it was leaking this like white milk fluid out of its mouth. Yeah,
it looked like was it wearing a mask or not?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
But we find out later on when she actually goes to that area where because she's been being told by these voices and these visions that she needs to go to a very particular place to give birth to her baby, which is supposed to be the future, the most important thing ever.
Yeah.
So she lands at this place and she finds the actual pod that was in her mind, and she finds the head of the creature that was coming out of it. And the head was it was a helmet, and inside the helmet was this, obviously dead skull, but it was like a mixture of tech and organic. It was like it was a hybrid type android.
All right.
And I didn't understand fully what it was, but I found out afterwards. The showrunner says what you were expected to understand from that was that this was a birthing pod, sort of like an egg from Alien.
Yeah.
Where they put an android inside of it and they force something to grow inside of it and to birth out of the mouth.
Oh, okay. Now I'm with you. So in the vision, this thing is sitting in like a Dungeons and Dragons or dice.
Yes, like a 20-sided die.
20-sided die. Yeah. The thing it's like a hexagonal kind of cubic pattern shape thingy. So that's actually, if we think of that as an egg, and now he is basically incubating inside of it, but there's a body. The creature's body is also in there. Wow. Okay.
So she ends up giving birth in a way that she doesn't expect, and it's very disgusting because
well, that's before so she gets huge though. And she's really lean, that woman, the actress. So and she doesn't put on any baby fat, and she almost looks ill with how big her belly is. And I'm not trying to like pregnancy shame or anything. I think it's but pregnant bellies are always like whoa, especially when they're like almost ready to pop. You're like, Jesus Christ, that thing is huge. It's beautiful. It's nature. It's circle of life.
Let's not sugarcoat it.
It's horrifying, but in a documentary sense, it's like, oh, look at this. This gigantic belly will now be yours. But so anyway, I was wondering, are they going to have her give birth before the end of the season, or is that going to be the cliffhanger?
Yeah.
What are they? I was assuming they were going to show or whatever, and so I'm kind of predicting or hypothesizing some sort of hybrid. I don't know who the father is. Did you get DNA somewhere?
And father got upset.
Oh, yeah, that father. But I don't think he was intended to be a DNA donor.
No.
He felt like he was being cheated on from her banging her.
Which was super interesting because it showed that he was evolving to become more human-like as well himself.
Yeah.
Because he felt like, he was like, Mother, it appears as though you do not care for me anymore. I am leaving. And he just leaves.
Yeah. Yeah, he just turns and runs.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if he ran. But anyway, so the speculation about what the baby was going to be like was like, who is is it going to be android human hybrid? Is it going to be fully not android and it just knows how to use her quote unquote biology to incubate like a parasitic kind of thing? Is it going to be a symbiotic thing? She's clearly got motherly instincts that are being provoked to protect it and to feed it. She's not like so horrified that she wants it out of her and kill it. That she doesn't want to abort it. She wants to carry it to term. So anyway, the whole process up to giving birth was like pretty intense as far as what the hell is going to come out of her. And then
you're wondering where it's going to come out because she only has one set of clothes, is this like form-fitting bodysuit of latex spandex.
It squeezes out through one leg and then comes out by her ankle.
Oh, that would be disgusting. She just shakes it out like was it
just like kicking a bag off your foot?
Yeah, like what's his name? Tim
Toolman Taylor?
No. God darn it.
Tim Minchin?
Shawshank Redemption, where he's shaking the dirt out of his leg as he's tunneling out of his cell.
Tim Robbins.
Yes.
He walks around the yard, letting
little android babies falling out of his leg.
Yeah, and they get up and they
go, but it answers the question I had, and it explodes out of her mouth.
Yeah, well, it goes down. Her belly gets small, and then she's like, where did it go? Where did it go? I think you'd still feel it in your... I had an esophagus issue I had to go to the doctor for, and any discomfort in your esophagus, and you feel it. They thought it was a heart problem. So anyway, they were worried. You get to cut the line at the emergency room when you have a heart problem. At least that was my case.
This I'm aware of.
James has had a little heart issues lately. Yeah. So everybody, in order to make him feel better, come over to twitch.tv. No. Yeah. No, but we're pulling for you, buddy. I will give you a ride anywhere. And it'll be... Don't die, James. Please don't die.
It's so much easier.
It would be easy. I don't want to die, but I do wish I was never born. I think that being born is fucking horrible, and it's really rude to do that to somebody, to force them to exist. Therefore, we have an obligation to make the world good for them and to give their life a good chance of having a good human experience during their 40 years they get to be alive.
That's all.
Before they die of a heart attack after playing too many video games. No, but hang in there. Don't die. We're going to get your heart put back together, and you and I will rent an RV and go on adventures. Okay,
like
Spaceballs. That's right. So the baby's born
through her mouth.
Through her mouth, she barfs up. Were you surprised it was a flying snake?
I was not expecting a flying serpent. Even though we've seen the bones of these things on the planet, we've seen the cave drawing that was moving around when Paul was looking in the cave. Yeah. And we forgot the whole part about Paul. The voices that speak to Paul also tell him that his mother and father are not his mother and father. So basically, whatever this entity is, it can read minds. And it's able to figure out everyone's deepest, darkest secrets, and it tells it to Paul. And Paul confronts his mother and shoots his mother in the gut with was not really his mother, but the mother who cares and loves him as a mother.
Mullet lady.
Yeah,
they'll have mullets and bad haircut bangs.
But anyway, the snake comes out, and immediately she's horrified by it, and it immediately latches onto her like a lamprey mouth and starts sucking out her fluids. And she knows at that moment that she's been deceived, that it was. That whatever she was communing with was not her creator. It was something else entirely different. And it put something... And the way the showrunner described it is it wasn't a pregnancy in the sense that you would think of a pregnancy. Mm-hmm. It was this creature was communing with her and using her body as sort of like a 3D printer. It was uploading instructions on what to create inside of her and telling her how to feed it so that it could come to fruition.
And did it stimulate, like, did it have to load up her, even though she's not a human, but she's designed by humans, right? But, like, did it have to load up her sex software in order to, like, get her to buy in?
I feel like that was part of her selling the story to her.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying, like, you could do the whole, like, program the 3D printer and then hit start and walk away for a few days and wait for it to be done. Or you can light some candles, take the 3D printer to Red Lobster, have an MP3 song ready for the drive home. I've had the time of my life by the song from the movie Dirty Dancing. And then pretend to have sex with a 3D printer just to make the 3D printer feel like it's got some ancient programming in it that makes it like more likely to kind of like carry it to, I'm just saying, like, if you remove the sexual reproductive act from the process, you might risk it not working because that's how it has always worked, is all I'm saying.
Right.
I doubt that actually would be true. I'm just offering up a wacky notion.
My interpretation of it was that had they not created the connection between her and the creator, and had they simply uploaded the instruction while she was wandering around the ship and she starts noticing herself growing larger, she would look at it from a rational perspective, like, oh, there is something medically wrong with me. Let me remove this and find out what this is. But because they did it with the creator... And she knowing that because it can read minds, I assume. Yeah. knowing that she has this love for the creator and that she's trying to strive to be more human, that's what gives her the instinct and actually tells her that the other children don't matter. This is your prime directive.
Right.
It uses all of those combined things to force her to care so much about this thing that she'll complete the mission for this creature, which is to rebirth this weird snake monster.
Yeah. Okay.
And the showrunner also said that the snake monster is connected to the bones that you see on the planet. It is the same species, but different because it's been birthed from an android. So it has abilities that the other snakes never had, one of which is flight.
Oh. Snakes don't have arms. So it can't do the T-shaped flying, but it flies similar to her because she doesn't. Okay, so that's where the snake gets the ability to fly. So we can assume that all the snakes on the planet weren't flying, because I just thought that that just must be like because they're like aliens, they can fly around on
yes, because if they could, then the bones you see would be floating.
Yeah,
because that's how that works.
That's how fossilized bones work.
Like all those pterodactyl bones in the sky. You ever see those?
Yeah, one of them killed my grandma. It fell on her, but it formed a perfect suit, and she turned into a superhero, and then she got killed by Homelander. So yeah, okay, cool. So the snake that actually makes it easier to digest the snake flying, because the snake flying was really kind of like, oh my god, give me a break. It was a little bit eye-rolly, although it's just as eye-rolly that she can fly around too. But I'd already fully accepted that she's just like a weapon that can fly around. Yeah. So,
but the scary thing about it was when it started suckling on her, she knew immediately that she had been deceived.
And she held onto it though like a baby. She carried it.
And she even said to the people around her, she said something like, we have to be careful. As soon as it's done sucking me dry, it's going to want blood.
And what was it? Yes. Yeah. And she was afraid for everybody because she knew this thing was going to outgrow her. But there was a really interesting few minutes there where she couldn't yet reveal it. She was actually shielding it with her body, like keeping her body turned.
Yeah.
Like if you ever get caught in the kitchen eating a ding dong you weren't supposed to eat, or like opening up the oatmeal cream pie box, and then your mom comes in and you're just like like dogs do when they get caught chewing on something. Yeah. Like she was like, no, I can't. But you also know, like, you gotta show, like, what are you gonna do? Keep your back turned to people for the rest of your...
It was like shame for having been wrong, for having been tricked and having been deceived, and now she's created something that threatens the very life and existence of everyone else on the planet.
Right.
Her being wrong had horrifically terrible ramifications.
Yeah, the opportunity cost of just all the time wasted running around, farting around, like drinking blood through a colostomy.
And we should mention, at this time, the Mithraic had already taken her eyes. So she couldn't weaponize herself and just yell it into oblivion. She was completely powerless to destroy it.
Right. Now, okay. Yeah. So it grows quickly, and it gets full size. Like it's as big as the...
Well, not until she tries to kill it. So she tries to kill it. Her and father decide we need to protect the children, and the best way we can protect the children is to rid the world of this creature before it becomes too big for us to do anything about.
Yeah.
So they take it into the whistle, and they fly down into one of those pits, and we finally get to see what's at the bottom of the pit. It is to the core of the earth, into this like molten lava, and they're like looking at each other, and they're like leaking milk out of their faces because they're incinerating as they get closer to it. The snake is freaking out and flying around because it can't get out. But eventually they burst through the lava and come out the other side of the planet into the tropical zone.
It was kind of like a changing station, like a transit hub.
Yeah,
like you could pick different, like it's almost like there are pores that go down to the center of the planet.
It was bizarre.
And then you can pick a different pore and come out a different part of the planet. Like if like your nose pores, like flying one side and come out the other.
So they come out the other side in the tropical zone, and they crawl out of the ship. They're alive, and they're over there, mother and father. But then the snake comes busting out of the ship, and it's already the size of like a hippo or bigger.
Oh, I thought it was way bigger. I just saw it.
Yeah, it had to be somewhat. It couldn't be like dinosaur size because it was coming out of that small ship.
Oh.
But it was big.
It gets dinosaur size before the end of the season, though. They show it. It swims off into the trees. I just watched it in one of these recaps.
Right, but that's it coming out of the ship. So we know it's not bigger than the ship.
I know.
But it's still enormous.
But later it gets much bigger.
Do we see it again after it comes out of the ship?
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. I don't know when, but it's after that. Because they show it as big as the fossils.
I thought that was like the ending shot.
Oh, it might be, yeah.
But the ending shot is it coming out of the ship.
No. There's a shot of it flying up into the trees, and it It is.
Oh, I thought that was it coming out of the ship and going past the trees. I have to look at that again.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I just watched it though. I was watching it in this recap video.
But the one part that we have not talked about yet is Ragnar. And I'll always call him Ragnar Lothbrok because his name is Magnus, whatever. But he loses favor with his group, and they
hit him with a rock, and he falls down.
Yeah, they find out that he is not who he says he is, and that he's lost the way, and that they're not going to follow him anymore. But before they hit him with a rock, or after they hit him, I think it was before they hit him with a rock, he takes the mother's eyes from around his neck or whatever, and shoves them down Ragnar's throat. Yeah, and the eyes start doing terrible, terrible things to him. And his veins are popping out. He's stumbling around. He's seeing things that aren't there. His vision is completely clouded. It looks like he's got a fever and whatnot. So he is completely out of his mind.
Yeah, fully bought into the belief that he's someone special.
Yeah, and
he's gone mad with power.
And is he the one at the very end who encounters other humans on the planet, other atheists, and their other ship that they were?
So a new ship shows up,
which is Mithraic, but it's also a ship that the atheists had taken over.
It is?
Yeah, showrunners say that. They say you're supposed to know that.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You know what? In the recap I just watched, the guy said so either he will convert them into his or new devotees to persuade or something. Yeah. Okay. So the final episode is the new ship shows up. Atheists took it. Is it an atheist originated ship, or they took it from Mithraics?
The way I understand it, those ships are always built by the Mithraic because they're the ones with the technology. So this is basically a hijacked ark of their own that the atheists have co-opted.
Right. Yeah. Pause. We just took a break and watched it, although we didn't find the full scene, and there's still some confusion about. There is a shot of him being very big, and flying. And because in the recap we just watched, the guy says he looks to be the size of the bones and the fossils. But you're saying he's emerging from the ship,
so logically it can't be bigger than the ship because it's coming out of the ship. But it's sort of like seeing a clown car than seeing a 10-foot man step out of it. It doesn't make any sense.
Or like an 80-foot man. But it doesn't make sense. But it's growing so quickly or something. So maybe had the ship and it had grown near the ship over a couple days, and in that shot it looked like it came out of the ship because it was coming out from behind the ship.
No, I mean I remember the scene. It was like you didn't know, you were hoping that the thing was dead, but it wasn't. And then the ship wreckage goes boom and busts open, and then we see it slither out of the ship and into the sky.
Yeah, I mean, heck, it could have been coiled up in there, but it did seem to be too big for the ship.
Do you think it's possible that there's more than one entity out there? One entity that wants to bring back these serpent creatures and one that doesn't? Because the one that wouldn't want to bring it back would not want it to go to the tropical zone. Because if you recall back, on Earth's history, what was the one thing that allowed creatures that are smaller today to be enormous back in... Oops, shut up, phone. In earlier times in history?
The dinosaurs being big, you mean? Why?
Why were insects huge? Why were snakes huge?
There was more oxygen.
Yes. Yeah. And you would expect something like that in a tropical zone, perhaps. So maybe this other voice, if it's a different voice from the original one, is warning Paul not to go to the tropical zone because it doesn't want to let the snake get there because the snake could grow uncontrollably huge there. And maybe that's why all the snakes are dead on the other side of the planet because it's not the tropical zone. Right. It's gone through some sort of global transformation where it's, it's barren and dry and they can't survive over there anymore.
Could be, yeah. Or it flew up to that and then just got stuck in the desert and died every once in a while a camper does.
Are they so massive that they're the ones who have chewed through the earth to create those giant holes?
I would think that they're symbiotically part of some sort of planetary consciousness that they use those holes for. I don't know, something like that. Maybe they're the humans who drew the cave paintings that Paul finds, or whatever. Humans or just or parallel evolved creatures that happen to look just like humans that we're calling humans. Perhaps maybe they were they arrived from some other place and killed off the snake things, which are the consciousness of the planet or something. And now the planet has finally had a chance to make a comeback now that the android lady came by who could be a decent feed, a decent
3D
incubation.
Print a new species to bring them back.
Yeah, that could be a thing. I don't know. I don't know if that made sense, but I would trust your theories over mine because I'm dumb and you're not me. Yeah, that's crazy.
The one thing we didn't talk, you mentioned briefly that they found a Neanderthal skull, right?
Yeah, I didn't know what to make of it.
And, well, I think father, or maybe it wasn't father, but somebody said something along the lines of, is it human? Is it from Earth? And they said, no, it's not from Earth, because the carbon or the composition makeup was not from terrestrial Earth.
Right.
Which would seem to suggest that there have been like humanoids living on this planet for millennia.
Yeah, it's hard to know, man. I mean, do you think that alien species out in other, let's say there's another civilized intelligent species that has radio technology, they do metallurgy and they have technology comparable to ours. Do you think that they're humanoid-ish? Do you think that the shape, the ape shape of humans is... I know the obvious answer is, of course not, because space is so many variables we couldn't possibly begin to understand.
I would say maybe, because we know that because we live in the same dimension as other creatures, and we know that we need light to be able to see. We know that we need some sort of a respiratory system to be able to breathe. We know that we need some sort of manipulation tools like hands and fingers and things to move things. So I would imagine that if there was something out there that abided by the same laws of physics that we abide by, which it must, because we understand that our universe has a set of static laws.
They have the same periodic table of the elements. Maybe slightly differently organized.
So they may not look like us, per se, but I would imagine they would have things comparable to hands and maybe feet, and something that's resemblance of eyes and a mouth, or something to take in food or something. So I would say that they would have something in common with us. Yeah,
I agree. I'm perfectly fine with the idea that they're wildly different and that they might have psychic issue or some other perceptions. Like if we want to say we don't want to be anthropomorphic, human-centric. There's a word for that, but if we want to try to like work around what we already know just because we want to try to maintain openness to other potential explanations, that can be an interesting intellectual exercise. But like you said, you need information. Like an animal is an information processing thing. So it has sensors and it has processing. And that's what determines behavior to get it to the point where it can reproduce. So eyes are a way of absorbing information. Ears are a way of detecting information. All the touch sensory stuff, skin, our hair, arm hair, everything about your body meant to detect information, the wind changing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You probably would want to be locomotory, move around. That could take on all kinds of different forms. There's probably some pretty innovative ways the universe could come up with to move things around that we've not thought of. But they probably have something like legs. Or something.
It depends on the environment too. If it's an aquatic environment, they'd have fins and they would float around. If it was like a very dark environment, maybe they wouldn't have eyes because they wouldn't be evolved to deal with light. So they have some sort of echolocation type way of getting around. Maybe, I mean, it all depends on what the status of their environment would be. Yeah,
and the ratios of chemicals. Like, was their solar system born of a similarly constituted cloud of gas and debris that ours was? Because that's what determined the makeup of oxygen. Actually, oxygen on Earth comes from animals, but the makeup of all the different, iron in the core and all the way the constituent parts of Earth and all the other planets, as well as the history of the solar system and the formation of them. I mean, there's all sorts of other things that are unique to every solar system, I'm sure.
You said oxygen on Earth comes from animals?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That means that it was produced by the bacteria, the cyanobacteria for billions of years produced the oxygen on Earth. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. Oxygen in the atmosphere doesn't naturally form as just a means of existing.
So it wasn't from like plant life converting carbon dioxide?
Yeah, those are animals.
Oh, well, I mean, plants and animals I always can talk about separately, but
life. It came
okay.
Oxygen
okay,
came
I got
from
you
life.
now.
Yeah. It didn't there might be some sort of ways, but to persistently produce the kind of oxygen on Earth. And actually the oxygen levels have been extremely stable throughout Earth's history somehow. If we lose what are they? There's an algae kind. It's what the fuck? There's a word for it. It starts with D. Deets. Something deets. Damn it. I can't think of it. But the blooms, the ones that form the gigantic blooms that are visible from space, those are like one of the primary drivers of it. One of the reasons global warming could get real bad real quick is if our oxygen ratio starts to change too quickly, which is a potential. I don't know how likely that is. I don't think it's very likely. But every other way global warming is fucking things up, is also terrifying, but the oxygen being messed with, it's lights out. It's lights out for the
what
planet.
If oxygen went way up and then every baby that was born was 20 feet tall?
Just sets on fire right away.
What else? This became like gigantic.
Oh, right. Because of the insects being big.
It's like the NBA would go out of business really quickly.
Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting. I'm not sure how we got into that. Alien life in other shapes. Yeah, like I don't think like they're going to look like humans because they look like humans and because actors always, I mean, of course, we're probably subconsciously biased by seeing almost every movie about aliens being some kind of creature. But it seems likely that there's probably a way that they process light. Mm-hmm. That seems likely. There's probably a way that they process vibrations in the atmosphere, which is what we call sound. Mm-hmm. That would be information that would be you could see why like evolution really took off when detecting light evolved, or moving towards food and moving away from food was the first step, they believe, and actually what started to cause the origins of locomotion, and the ability to detect the differences, and then to be and then you start to eat other animals, which creates an arms race all the way super far back. Why am I rambling about this? Yeah. Oh, one thing I think you can say confidently in terms of an intelligent species creating technology is they're probably social. It seems to me highly unlikely that a non-social species would build a radio tower.
Oh, yeah.
Would develop metallurgy to the point where they can and computing technology or whatever ways. Because if they're producing electricity, because electricity is like a gigantic, I think fire and electricity, and it's probably a little early, but you might be able to say the internet might have something similar in terms of like truly like pivotal things that seem to be necessary for a species. Electricity is like gigantic.
Imagine Bell inventing the phone and being like, well, got no one to call, so this was a dumb idea. Throw it away.
No one to call. But like, you don't get to the point where you make the phone, where you invent the phone, unless there's been knowledge before you.
Oh, yeah.
No animal's going to produce all the information needed to create a rudimentary telephone in its own lifetime,
unless
from nothing, from rock dust.
Like many sci-fi things have suggested before, you have like shared consciousness hive minds.
Could be
where they never lose knowledge because they are born with the collective knowledge.
Yeah, there's a premise of that in one of the great Stargate SG-1 episodes. I just like mentioning that show because it gets react. That could be, maybe, but knowledge, learning, teaching thing from one generation to the next, that is, I think, something we don't appreciate as much as we should as people, because what that means that we get to benefit from generations that existed 15,000 years ago and 25,000 years ago and 100,000 years ago. Knowledge is how human beings are a superorganism that exists across time. If I develop some new information or something new and I teach it to somebody and they teach it to somebody, I will exist forever. So like real science and real knowledge is like a glorious pursuit and a truly beautiful, wonderful thing. Can knowledge be used for bad? Yeah, of course it can. You have to be responsible. Nuclear energy, for instance, and et cetera, et cetera. A kitchen knife can be very dangerous, but it can also cut my cheese into cubes and to delight any women I might have come by if I ever get back into dating. They love cubes.
Oh, I thought you were talking about knives.
No, not
Be
knives.
delighted.
Do you like my knife? Anyway, I believe though that alien animals out there that reach similar technology as we currently have probably are social. They probably build. They probably have. With social comes emotions and comes having to communicate and comes all sorts of things. I'm making assumptions, but. It seems like you need to be able to like the thing I think that binds all humans together is empathy, that we can kind of understand how it would feel. Like if I see a bucket of fire about to fall on your head, I would go in my brain, I'm a person like James and I know how much I would be in pain and I don't want James in pain and I'm going to push that fire out of push him out of the way into a wall of spikes.
Do you think it works in cycles though?
Cycles?
Like humanity will start from nothing, then grow and gain and gain and gain and gain until it gets to the point where it discovers and creates reality TV. And then it devolves back into sludge, and then it just comes circle and circle and circle. So we always get to that one brick wall of stupidity.
I do think stupidity is a form of great filter. I think there probably is like a social barrier to like there. I think we might be living in a type of great filter. Like asteroid impact could be a great filter. Sun going supernova or expanding so big, that's definitely a great filter. The sun is going to get too bright for Earth in about 1 billion years. It's actually not going to be. It's not going to. It will swallow us in about 4 billion years or so. But the brightness is going to be what cooks Earth before the actual diameter gets so big. Because the sun is the main sequence star. It's going to become a red giant eventually. Wait, what?
Invest in curtains now.
Invest in curtains, yeah. Even with the brightness, we got 1 billion years. It's not like 20 years from now. The sun will get brighter.
If my mom had invested in Apple 1 billion years ago, I'd be in a much better place now.
Yeah. There's definitely... It's highly imperfect, I would say. Yeah, for sure. I mean, human beings get in their own way all the time with false news or false beliefs or false truths.
Alternative facts. Things that, and the complexities of a social, globalized social animal, which the internet allows us to be sort of a globalized animal, developing this planetary hive mind kind of thing. Even that's an overly simplistic way of summarizing it. But all of that is highly imperfect. But you definitely can't build a radio tower by yourself. That's all I'm saying. You need all that freaking knowledge before you to do it, first of all. And you probably need someone else to help you boil the metal into the Eiffel Tower. How annoying would babies be if they were born with all of the collective knowledge? And can you imagine being born knowing who all the winners of The Bachelor's past seasons were?
Yeah, like we've reached the pinnacle of human capacity for designer babies, but we just inject them with the dumbest bullshit. Yeah.
Or what if it was like humans had a limited capacity to learn, and you're born with just the collective knowledge of everything from that point in time behind?
Well, you know a lot of stuff, right? I mean,
you would, but it's like
all that.
Yeah, but think of your grandfather. Be like, I'll never understand them fangled televisions and computers, but I know everything about physics and mathematics.
Oh yeah.
And then a child who's born like 80 years later would be infinitely, vastly superior to that man.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like a human being now can explain the world in more accurate terms. The average 8th grader can explain with repeatable and testable, verifiable results how the world works, if they've had a little bit of decent education, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was taught all that when I was a kid. Jesus did it.
Yeah. Why is the sky blue?
Jesus.
All right. Anyway, I could ramble about that forever. I find that kind of stuff really interesting. So this whole show opens up all those. I feel like this show just basically takes all those kinds of themes we're talking about. Prophecy, special boy prophecy, which is a very kind of patriarchal religion thing. Like, oh, there's a special boy. Let's go find this special boy. But that's okay.
Well, the special girl walked and fell down a hole, so that's her fault.
Well, she's haunting them all.
Yeah.
I just mean, it actually makes sense because it does make sense that Earth will continue to evolve, and that is a dominant cultural precept, the special boy religion.
Yeah, but
I find it ridiculous.
This whole show is like all matriarchy, though. It's all about mother.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's unique. I'm not saying it's all. I just mean the notion that it's got to be a special boy. I find it really funny that religions that are so insistent on the special boy, because usually it's a cult leader that started it who wants to be the special boy because he wants to bang everybody's wife, aka L. Ron Hubbard, David Koresh, and all the rest of those crazy nut and goofy guys. I tried to start a cult, but I couldn't get anybody to answer my Craigslist ad. I'm a special boy. Everybody have sex with me. Point is, though, that's not even. I'm not even trying to score some big woke point. I just think that that's funny to me. I just find it silly to be like, look at the special boy. Look, everybody walked through the night to go stare at a baby in a box. But yeah, it's very much about like the overlapping influences of biology and motherhood and fatherhood, and what does it mean to be a protector, and what does it mean to like have influences you don't. I mean, that's why this whole series is very provocative, because it's not laying all that out in a cut and dry manner, but it also is tapping into instinctive qualities. And I think that human beings, I think I have motherly instincts as well as fatherly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily think that you have to be female to feel what a mother would feel. I'm not saying I understand what mothers go through. I'm not suggesting that whatsoever. I'm just saying, like, they're not as bottled off as we are taught. There is a, that's why I can understand or at least as a viewer, a part of my, when you're watching any show, your empathy reactor is activated because you're in that show with them as a, that's vicarious experience. That's why we feel emotions when we read and consume media, books, shows, TVs, pictures, movies, porn, for instance. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, I like that this show did that, and that it makes you ask questions, and nothing's actually all that well explained. And the special effects were great. The writing was good. I definitely felt a little tired. I found it a little exhausting. It wasn't. Anyway, go ahead. Good.
About what in particular?
Oh, I was going to compare it to The Boys, because we are going to do another talk about The Boys. But like, but I don't want to shift. Maybe at the very end, I'll just mention what I'm thinking about that.
Okay.
Do you have anything you want to say? Or
no. I was like, is there anything you want me to respond to that you were saying there? Or?
I want you to repeat what I said, but backwards.
Well, I was thinking about, you were saying that something along the lines of the misconception that men can't feel the same way that women do in terms of like motherly protection and stuff.
Sure.
And I think you're right about that, but I do think that there is a hormonal, physical, biological thing that causes like mothers after childbirth to have a much, and I'll never understand it because I'll never go through that, nor will you, but
thank God.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want snakes exploding out of my mouth. But I think that, so I always think about things in terms of like a video game. It's like, okay, let's say that I have certain skills. Some are specialized and some are just trained. A trained skill will never be as good as a specialized skill, will never reach the peaks of the specialized skill. And I feel like there's certain levels of emotional attachment and emotional, biologically, physiologically driven things that from a motherly, maternal standpoint, a woman will have. Yeah. Not to say a man can't feel that way in some capacity, but I think it would be a fallacy for us to say that we can ever fully understand that.
I hope I didn't.
I think I'm just reiterating what you're saying.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
But
I didn't want to make it. I'm not trying to take that away, nor am I trying to demystify the truly beautiful, powerful notion of a mother.
Right.
Because unlike females, males don't produce the baby from their body.
Right.
We are not the 3D printer. We don't have a womb. We don't have a vagina. My comedy brain is activating right now. I'm going to resist saying, but so like that is a truly unique, although it's shared by other people who reproduce, but like that is a truly powerful thing to physically, literally create a human and literally squirt it out of your body, and then the hormonal responses that come along with all that, and the physical challenges for it. I don't want to take.
And there's a lot of talk lately about like equality, which isn't of course equality should be a thing that we have, but people saying things like, well, anyone of any gender should be exactly just as equally as capable of this as the other person, and this and everything. There's no difference here, no difference there. It's like, but yes, there is a physiological significant difference in how we are born and how we are raised and how our biology and the chemicals and the hormones and the brains and everything operate. And it doesn't necessarily mean that one person can't feel the same as another person, but you cannot discount the fact that we are between, male and female, we are inherently different. We are different in many, 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 many different ways. That doesn't mean that we can't understand each other, right. But it's, you can't simplify things as much as some people would like to.
Certainly not. And it's always, things are generally vastly oversimplified, especially this kind of thing, because the male-female binary, there is a social usefulness to keeping those definitions as rigid as possible. And throughout probably the majority of human history, especially Western societies, there's been and I'm only saying that because I was raised in America in a Western society. I'm not saying I have this is a rejection of other societal things. I'm just saying that's the one I grew up in. That there is a strict notions of masculinity and femininity that are acceptable or not acceptable. There's a range of what is considered, and of course this is oversimplifying. There's no great book that has all the exact rules you're supposed to follow, but culturally the world's a little bit easier to process when things have simpler definitions. And as things have gone on, I believe that we've sort of gray areaed gender more than a lot of people are comfortable with right now. Okay. And that's something I think that I'm for. That's actually why I brought it up, though, is because I am leaning I'm trying not to say that all men and women should be exactly equal and always feel the same thing, and you should get offended if you suggest that they're different or the same or whatever. I'm saying that their differences are apparent and obvious, but that their differences are different too, meaning there's a gradient that is at play. It's not simple definitions. And what I like to try to lean into is humanism. People are people first. There is a major differentiation. A female's experience, if I were born female, my experience in life would be different than what I currently have. Although there'd still be vastly much, if you made a list of similarities, like a female duck and a male duck, they have some differences, but they're both ducks. Mm-hmm. They have a duck life. So humans and males and females have a fucking human life. We all have a human life. And I empathize and sympathize with women because they are people. Same with men because they are people. Same with babies and children because they are people. That's where my heart breaks for humans who stress, humans who suffer, humans who have to fit into a mold, a modernity that is in contrast with their instincts. Because I think our instincts are often challenged because we are living in ways we did not evolve to really be good with.
Yeah, and I was mainly talking about like biology, not social constructs.
Yeah.
So like the whole idea that if you're born as a girl, you need to like the color pink, you need to play with dolls, you need to want to be a mother.
Yeah. Those are social constructs.
Yeah, or if you're a boy, you got to like blue, you got to like trucks and cars and fighting is like, I think that's completely ridiculous. And I could go completely without that. But the notion of people saying it's like, well, a girl is just as strong and capable as any boy. It's like, well, no. I mean, mentally, yes. Capable, yes. But is an average girl ever going to be able to physically overpower an average man or an average boy? No. The physiology is just different, and we have to accept that.
Yes, I would push back against someone who tried to tell me that the average woman is as strong as the average man. And that's just is biology. It's like that's called sexual dimorphism.
Right. And I get that certain people want to be like, okay, well, I feel like there should be equality, there should be empowerment, there should be get rid of the idea that a woman is not as strong as a man. It's like wanting something to be true has no bearing on whether or not it is true or not. It's like biology is biology, regardless of whether we like it or not. There's nothing we can do about it.
Well, what we can do about it is to operate with that in mind. Like that's information that should be incorporated into how we like if I find out a man punches a man versus a man punches a woman, those are different things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If I learn that a friend of mine punched a guy and then I learned that he also punched a woman, look, there might be maybe she stabbed him or something and I'm like, okay, I can come up with a scenario where it's okay. but like it is different. There are physical differences. And that should be incorporated. And that's also where a lot of the tension comes out of this whole conversation because those are where the gray areas are in that. And because it is absolutely true that there are women that are stronger than me.
Oh, right. But that's why I use the word average.
I know. Yeah. The word average. Yeah, exactly. Like there's certainly things, although I'm 6'3" and I'm built like a depressed baseball player.
Yeah, Ronda Rousey would tear my head off. So
Ronda Rousey would fuck me up. Anybody who has training, but it isn't to like ignore. I think femininity is a wonderful thing, and I think masculinity is a wonderful thing, and I think it's all folds under the umbrella of the range of human behaviors. And like, let me just say this. I don't know if this makes any sense, but if you can picture gravity. Here we go. But yeah, it's like a binary star system, and maybe I'm way off on this because gender and biology are not they're not as directly overlapping as we've all been taught to believe, and this is part of the gray area and the complication with people struggling to wrap their minds around it. A process I've been in myself, and I'm not claiming to be an expert or an authority on this stuff, and I have nothing but love and open-mindedness and compassion for people who have more information and for people who have their own experience and their own perspective. I just want people to understand. So I'm saying this as a starting point for a conversation, not as I'm trying to tell you how the world works. Okay, I just want to be clear about that. But like two suns, you have sort of a center, you have a core in one side and a core in another. You have two gravitational fields that are interacting. One is, let's say, female, one is male. So those are distinct and you can identify them. But between them, you have the material of the sun itself. They have a shared field. They have like a gradient. And so you can orbit one of those or both of them or one. You know what I mean? Like you can be heavily on the visual. I'm trying to like create a visual chart in your brain. If you're all the way over on one side and you're heavily on the female characteristics or whatever the fuck you want to call that, however you want to find that, well, all right, cool. If you want to be all the way over on the other and you're like heavy on the male characteristics, however you want, like that's cool too. There are versions of masculinity and femininity that I think you could describe as toxic that are less desirable than others. But within this system, and there's also a vast gray area between there's really feminine men and really masculine women. There's also people are allowed to travel between these different sort of intensities during their life between the two binary stars that are orbiting each other. I see it as a system. There's my word. I love that word. It is sort of a system of human beings, and we wouldn't exist without the ability to reproduce. So we have to have two, basically. Like we don't reproduce asymmetric. What is it called?
Asexually.
My symptoms are I had a baby. So anyway, I just think like I don't think there's anything wrong with whatever the fuck people want to be, however the fuck they want to express their gender or their life or their masculinity or their femininity, as long as they're not hurting other people and they're being authentic and honest to who they are. I am for a revolution in getting rid of the guardrails that we impose on people. That's all.
Yeah, I always saw it as like, there's if you're a gender, you're a male, or you're a man or you're a woman, and then in terms of femininity or masculinity, whichever side of the spectrum you're on, that's just your personality. That's who you are.
Kind of.
So when did this stop being your personality and start being a redefinition of the word gender? Is like, does it really matter? It's the same thing.
When we talk about it in terms of like politics or social stuff, it's you're usually talking about power. And because it's been used to wall off either people to keep power or people to not have power. And how many women signed the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence? How many women, they weren't allowed to vote.
They signed on the back.
They didn't. You had to have a permission from your husband to get a bank account until like the 70s or a credit card or something like that. And that's not, I'm not making a political statement. I'm talking about power. Somebody chose to limit power based on gender. That was a decision that was made probably collectively, but that was decided and imposed, and those things change. And
it was only until like the 50s or so when women got the right to
voting was 1920.
Okay, what was it in the 50s? I feel like there was something big that happened in the 50s that was like a
divorce. Ruth Bader Ginsburg helped pass or made some rulings in terms of divorce. It used to be you couldn't get a divorce unless you had approval from your husband.
Oh well, that's
like handy. that's Taliban shit, man. I mean, but again, if you don't get upset, it's about. I'm not saying you're getting upset. I'm just talking because people get triggered by this kind of conversation. It's like I'm talking about power and just limiting or not limiting and letting people have a voice that's authentic to who they are, or forcing them to live into a mold that maintains current power systems.
I feel like we're getting to a better place though, because
I agree.
Because if you, anytime I've been on like an internet forum or something like that, and someone was voicing their opinion, and they were talking about their experience, say that they are gay or trans or something like that, and somebody tries to attack them, the entire community just comes down and does a massive beat down on the person that tries to attack the person who's expressing their views.
That's good.
So I feel like in terms of power, I would feel like at least we're moving in the right direction in that case, that you would never even think to denigrate or insult someone who's brave and strong enough to come out and say that they're trans or they're gay or that they have something that they're self-conscious about, that they haven't fully embraced yet, that they need to be proud about, that they're not proud about yet. Right. It seems like society embraces that more than fights against it in my experience. And not only like the past decades, that was absolutely the opposite. You say something like that and you get torn down, and it changed. Yeah, but I feel like in terms of speaking about power shifts, I think like we're definitely moving the dial in the right direction.
Yes, the dial, and I like imagine like a airplane cockpit. It's a bunch of dials. It's not just one dial, and it's definitely not a toggle switch. It's not a hard cut. It's not a ka-tunk, and all of a sudden everything's better. Yes, I think it is moving in the right direction, and along with that, you're going to get people pushing back and holding on to the way things used to be. The word conservative is probably appropriate for just the notion of I don't like change. I'm uncomfortable. Things are okay with the way things are for me. So let's not change too much. But yeah, I agree. It is moving in the right direction, and it's context dependent. There are still young people who are terrified to tell their family they're gay, or terrified to tell their family they're trans, or maybe they're processing it. I don't know how. I've never felt that. I think I'm lucky to be pretty firmly rooted in like a suicidally depressed male brain. I've had depression since I was a fucking kid, but I've never had any thoughts or feelings about my gender. I frankly kind of like being a guy with I like to. I'll objectify the shit out of you if you want me to. Once we get home from the Red Lobster in my 2012 Prius with leather seats, it's pretty sweet.
Is it the 2012?
It's 2012.
Oh, nice.
Goddamn right.
That's when the world was supposed to end.
That's when what?
The world was supposed to end.
The Maya calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's working in the right direction. Progress never happens as fast as it should.
Even in my lifetime, what was like, I don't know if this was the same for you, but like when I was a kid in like elementary school or something like that, the worst insult, there were two words that you could use to someone that was like knee jerk. If you really wanted to hurt someone and make all the kids laugh and point at them and stuff and just be vicious, there are two.
The F word?
No. Oh. You could call them gay. Or and then I hate to even use this word anymore because I used to, when I was a kid, I say it all the time because it was normal there, and I'll say it for now. It's just retarded.
Oh yeah,
it's like now people call it the R word.
Yeah, I think,
and no one batted an eye back in the day when you would say, "Oh, that's gay. You're gay." They would say it all the time. But nowadays, you hear a kid say that, and you put them in the corner and you say that is not acceptable. Don't ever let me hear you say that again.
Right. That's how things change. Is what you shame people for versus what you wouldn't. When I was a kid, we would play. So I was a kid in the 80s. We would play a tackling game with a ball out in the yard called Smear the Queer.
Oh, I've heard of that. I don't know what it's about.
You go smear the queer, and then you throw the ball, and whoever catches the ball, they're the. I don't even like saying it in this context. It feels weird. I'm trying to respect that this was. But we were children. We were between 4 and 10, running. And I'm not saying we were bad. I'm saying that was 80s bias and cultural influence that existed in. So I'm bringing it up as an example of the way we're influenced by big, powerful forces that we don't understand. Mm-hmm. Did me and my friends run around, or my brothers and the neighborhood kids, were we thinking about gender politics and sexual orientation when we did that? No, but we were definitely exhibiting a symptom of a culture where it was okay to do that. If you saw some kids screaming that word now in a fun game in their yard, well, if your children, but like I don't think most parents would tolerate that anymore at all. Whereas my parents had a big scoreboard that said "smear the Q" word, and then they'd say, "Who won? Who won? You little fuckers!" No, they wouldn't. My parents wouldn't do that at all either. But anyway, I just that's one of those things. It's like, holy shit, we used to run around and do that.
Did you ever play that game that was like the pinnacle of the matriarchy back in the 80s and 90s called Mother Says? Or
no.
So the way it worked, and I might be getting it slightly wrong, but I remember my mom would play it all the time, and she would sit on these like steps here, and my sister and I would stand maybe like 50 feet back at the same line, and she would say, "Mother says take 2 steps forward." And we take 2 steps forward. And then you go, "Mother says takes 1 step back." Take 1 step back. "Mother says raise your right arm." And we get indoctrinated into that. And then she'll say, "Take 1 step back." You take 1 step back. Goes, "Mother didn't say take 1 step back." And then you lose.
We call that Simon Says.
Oh, my mom used to say Mother Says.
Wow, that's kind of weird. That's very much like a Raised by Wolves Mother Says.
Yeah, it was creepy. But
I've never heard of that. I mean, it makes sense because a mother is an authority.
I knew Simon Says as the electronic handheld game.
Yeah, that too.
I never connected the two. They're exactly the same.
It was just like Simon Says jump. Simon says left hand. Simon says, and then you go right hand, and you go, "Oh, yeah, I didn't say it." You're just supposed to. It's just a brain quirk.
Wasn't Simon for me.
Mother Says, yeah, that's interesting. That's cool. I mean,
and there was another one called a game called like Mother May I or something like that.
Yeah, there's something like that.
Yeah, I forget how that one goes.
There should be. Mothers are,
they're oppressive matriarchal figures that must be crushed. Crush the matriarchy.
We all power should be challenged. That's my belief. Because people who have influence over others have a responsibility that is often failed. And but yeah, no, mothers and fathers. And
if you let their power go unchecked, they turn into necromancers.
Yeah. And then you turn into a smoothie who floats around in the air. All right, good. As a Suck Professor classic, where Hank and James wade into territory they neither were prepared for or should be talking about. Great. Two white guys.
Mother, may I stop this now?
Yeah. Hank says, press stop. So, would you recommend the Raised by Wolves show?
I would. I was shocked, though, when I started going along the Twitter sphere to see what people thought about the finale episode where the big snake emerges, and people were just like hating it, saying, "This is not what I wanted it to be. This is stupid. This was not at all what I expected." And I was wondering if people were emotionally invested in the show for the wrong reasons. Like, maybe some people got into it like, oh, I'm an intellectual atheist. Screw these religious people. Or another person saying, oh, I'm religious. No, I think this is great. So screw those atheists. And they were like taking sides like a sports game. And then the show turned into something else. Yeah. And they're like, well, screw this. This isn't about my win or lose situation here. So I don't know. It's interesting to see what is it that made people like the show enough to keep watching. And why is it that in the last episode they tend to deviate off and say that they hated it?
Was it because of the snake mainly, or other reasons?
I don't know. Maybe the only thing I can think of is maybe like people who gravitated to the side of religion saw the final episode as a means through which to prove their mentality correct, in that this Christ-like child was going to be born, and it would prove the atheists wrong. And instead of getting Christ, they got flying death snake.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I would use the word atheist to describe myself. I don't have the same atheism I had probably when I was a teenager.
Yeah, me too.
When I first rejected the Bible for being just the fucking stupidest.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing. Why do we need a term to describe not believing that? It's like, you might believe that a chair over there floats up at midnight every night, and I'll call you a levitarius.
You wouldn't need it if the...
Why should there be a term for a person who doesn't believe that?
Because theists want to run the world and often have taken over society. So yeah, I do think it makes sense to have a I want rather a non-smoking hotel room. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lingering effect of smoking, and that's gross.
But what if all the people who run the policies and the laws want all the classrooms to be smoking? That your children are in.
I would want a non-smoking society in terms of a non-religion. I'd rather have no religion in any government whatsoever.
So when your kids go to school and they open their textbook and smokes billows out, and you see the metaphor I'm doing here, because they're infusing religion into education.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah. Right. But I don't have a dog in like the atheists need to win my story fight. You know what I mean? Like if I thought I was watching Veggie Tales and this turns out to be just straight up Christian propaganda, I might not be all that curious. I mean, it's even then I'd be like, all right, well, it's entertaining, but I don't think that's what's going on. I like a complicated, because religion is human. Again, religion is you can't tell the story of humanity without talking a lot about religion. Right. If you keep it under the auspice of, I don't know if that's right, you said that word, of this is a human behavior and a human construct, and it's something that humans have done throughout their, not to say every single human religion is always identical. They're not all special boy religions, but it's very human to have religion. So stories where they play with religion and atheism, especially like this kind of, I love shows that advance these storylines far into the future. Like one of my favorite things about the Serenity, that was the series, right? Yeah, Serenity.
Firefly.
Serenity
was the movie. Yeah.
Serenity was the movie. Damn it, I knew it. But that the two languages that are spoken after humans have like kind of populated most of the galaxy or whatever are Chinese and English. Right. And that makes sense. Like that's a cool, maybe Spanish might hang on for a little while too. But if you're going to pick two languages to survive, that's probably the two I would pick. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I like that factor of the show that they're like, well, what would a religion that uses technology, but they're still very fervent in their beliefs? Well, they would kind of convert God into the sun, and actually, because the sun actually makes the most sense for me about it. If you're going to worship anything,
yeah, I think most religions formulate around sun worship.
Yeah, generally, like
most ancient religions
and mothers too. I think, like at least as far as evidence goes, the fertility probably more than motherhood.
I think
mothers were
from what I've read, and I could be wrong about this. I feel like the male was always associated with the sun, and the female was always the moon.
I think there's some notions of that being a dichotomy that's explored, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, I welcome a show where atheists become religious. I don't care. Like, these are human stories. I welcome a show where there's a lot of challenges to an atheistic perspective as well as challenges to a religious perspective. And I feel like that's what they know that the dumbest thing that the writers of this show could do would be come down very clearly on either side.
Right.
So keep it ambiguous.
That's what I was thinking.
And it's more compelling.
Because if they do one way or the other, they alienate one side or the other. And by choosing not to throw their chips into either side, maybe that's why certain people are turned off by the finale.
Yeah, I could see that. And like the other thing I think people do is where a story doesn't go where they wanted. Well, too bad. You didn't write it. Mm-hmm. Like someone else wrote it. Like when I see a painting, any kind of art, you're going where they take you. Mm-hmm. And in the internet age where people can access, their creators, by creators I mean creators of entertainment properties. We're using the word creator now. There's an evolution of maybe a religional form around.
Oh God, no.
That. Anyway, but people think that they can, not all people, and this is just a small subset of the internet that's really annoying, is the ones that believe that they should be weighing in on the storytelling. Like, look, you weigh in with your dollars and with your attention. If things get good ratings, if things sell, they're going to make more, or the author will then be able to write the next book, or et cetera, et cetera. So you do get to influence these things, but the idea of directly influencing I find that kind of repulsive. As someone who's trying to make their living being a person who does tell creative stories on his own, that's so I find that a little. So maybe that's what people are reacting to, is the snake was so off-putting because it just I don't know. The snake was weird. I mean, it was kind of fucking nuts.
But you can't say it wasn't foreshadowed. Twice, at least. Yeah. The bones everywhere, the tunnels, and then the moving imagery on the wall. It's like it was there all along.
That it would be a baby that she would barf
up? That it was an established thing in this universe. Oh, yeah, so the side of it shouldn't be totally confusing.
Oh, right. Yeah. And I'm actually...
And the twist that she was deceived, that it wasn't her creator that did this, it was some other force.
Yeah, and you don't put that giant fossil thing in the field unless you're going to do something with the snakes eventually. I was thinking it'd be like a season 2 thing where like maybe like snakes wake up and they start getting attacked by snakes, or maybe the snakes turn out to be more intelligent. Mm-hmm. So I did not predict that she was going to barf one up.
Do you think it was maybe because when they were flying down into the core of the plane, they were copyright infringing snakes on a plane?
Yeah. I've had enough of these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking android. Yeah. My Samuel L. Jackson impression needs a little work. Shit, I was going to say something I forgot about snakes, humans being whatever. That's okay. I don't think it matters.
Could it be also like the snake being representative of the devil in the Garden of Eden, with mother and father being Adam and Eve?
Are the writers of this show sophisticated enough to realize either they did that on purpose or it was an accident, yet they're still talking about the tree of knowledge and the snake and the symbology of the snake at the core of... I know there's a lot of...
the core of the earth, the apple core, the forbidden fruit.
Cyanide inside apples? No, that's not... It's like so minimal. So yeah, it's not hard to stumble into religious allegories that are... And I know there's a more academic study about what the snake means in religion than I can grasp or understand right now. But yeah, I was going to say they should have done some foreshadowing where she goes up to the snake skeleton, like the giant fossil, and like stands right at the end of its tail at the very end and goes, "Hey guys, wouldn't it be funny if I barfed this up?" And then pretended to barf up.
She just skeleton. Puts like the tail in her mouth.
Yeah, just like the big bone at the end of the table, the tail that's like the size of a football. She just holds that up, pretends to barf out a snake.
I mean, she looked
in episode 1 or 2.
Yeah,
and
what else is weird about a snake?
Snakes are. What do you mean? What else is weird?
A snake is a very slender creature, much like Mother. And when it eats something, it has this engorged bulb in it. Yeah. Which, like Mother, when she was pregnant, was this tiny little thing. She was like a snake herself.
She was like she was. That big old belly of hers. I saw a video of a snake that ate a deer. And it literally ate it. Like it swallowed it from back leg, so the head of the deer was last to go.
Was the deer dead?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
There was like some guys standing around watching it. It was like on Instagram or something. I wasn't searching for this. It's just the algorithm decided I needed a treat. And it was a big ass like anaconda snake, and it fucking opened its mouth and plowed this deer down faster than you take down a burrito, dude.
Wow!
It was like I watched it multiple times and counted. It was like under 10 seconds.
Jeez!
It's because it gets its jaw open and then it just like muscles almost walks itself over the deer with its mouth open. It's almost like a car wash where the car doesn't move.
It's like putting a tripod into its canvas bag.
Kinda. Yeah. Like you might as well hear that nylon zing sound. All right. Well, we solved gender. We solved dances with Raised by Wolves. And I wanted to say just finally, unless you have any wrap-up thoughts, it's a good show. Go ahead.
I do have a question in general.
Hit me.
Did anyone else order an animatronic Baby Yoda? Because they're not supposed to be out till December, but I have one now. What gives?
What gives? What
is that?
James got an animatronic Baby Yoda. You mean the delivery they said was December?
Yeah, I pre-ordered it and it said it's not released until December 15th. I pre-ordered it back in like February. I was like, well, I'm not going to have this until like Christmas time. And then I go to Amazon and see if I'm crazy, and it still says, click to pre-order, releases on December 15th. Well, and yet there it is, sitting over there next to my computer.
It is sitting there. And it is weird because it did reject the meat I tried to feed it.
Oh, yeah.
And it said it wanted fungus.
It only likes frogs.
Only frogs. Huh. Maybe it's a special boy.
Yep.
They must have shipped them pretty early, though. I doubt you're the only person.
No, I mean,
that's what you're saying.
There's a small handful of them on eBay right now, but every other site you go to says releases December. So maybe like the first wave came out, and because I was like the first pre-order, I got one of those like mega early ones. Yeah. I don't know.
He goes to sleep though, right? You can put him to bed.
Oh yeah, his eyes are closed right now.
It's a Furby. Is that basically a Furby? You can touch his tongue with your pinky and make it think it had a piece of food.
It's not a Furby, but in all intents and purposes, it's a Furby.
It's me. Why are they bald? Shouldn't they have hair? They're babies.
No, if you touch the top of his head, I mean, it's not like hair, but you can see a little texture where it would have hair.
We had a Yoda toy that you could put your hand in. It was a Yoda-sized toy, although probably smaller than the real Yoda. And its head was collapsible, so and it had this little tuft of white hair on the top sewn into the head, like a doll hair. We would push its head in, and then being raised by white trash, we would say, "Look, a cigarette tray. Look, it's a cigarette tray. Look, cigarettes." Because we were raised by smokers.
Yes.
And yes, I'm allowed to call them white trash because I am one. Okay? Fuck you, Jerry Springer! I was just going to say about the boys, though, because maybe we'll do our boys podcast not right now, since we didn't plan on talking for 2 hours here about
we never planned on anything.
I told James we're going to do a half hour.
And then you said, well, half hour, more like 45 minutes.
Yeah, it'll probably go longer, like 45.
And then it turned into this.
But on my podcast, I try to go 45, and I always go like 2 hours. So if you guys like my shit, I got tons of stuff me yelling about the fucking Democrats and the fucking Republicans and goddamn Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell. There's a lot of that. If anybody listening's wants to get on board with that shit. And Twitch is cool because people can like send messages and then you can talk and share stuff. I'm really liking how Twitch works. Final thing I was going to say is we watched this, and it's only relevant because it's at the same time. The Boys season 2, and that was been our like 2 big shows this last like 8 weeks or 10, whatever. And really enjoying both of these series. I think like The Boys I like a lot more than Raised by Wolves, and I really liked Raised by Wolves. So The Boys has really captured my my interest and my attention. And I'm a little resistant to superhero stuff. I really love the social commentary of it. But why am I starting to get into that? Why did I bring this up? Oh, just the overall experience of this versus The Boys. I feel like The Boys is like a big bowl of really good Chinese food, like my favorite meal. Like a General Tso's with a couple of egg rolls and a big bowl of egg drop soup to dunk my face in. Fried rice, maybe even, and those the fortune cookies that are like dense, not those thin shitty ones. So anyway, The Boys to me is just like great entertaining calories with even some strong messaging, but I'm dumb. It's dumb enough for me to understand. And this felt like it was literature. A little too heavy, way more symbology than I understand. And the creators sound like they're deliberately being not misleading. I don't want to say it, but like they're deliberately keeping things unexplainable in order to provoke a little like uncertainty and confusion. Yeah. That's all I was going to say.
Raised by Wolves is a luxury jacuzzi with classical music playing. And The Boys is a rad, awesome, fun water slide that you want to go down and keep going back to the top to do it again.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, well said. Not completely perfect. There's definitely a little bit of stuff in The Boys could probably quibble with. But overall, of these 2 shows, The Boys for me is like, damn, this is like a fucking... I don't know if it's yet Breaking Bad level caliber of a show. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure.
I would say no.
Like, I know that these are purely opinions, but like The Wire, Sopranos, Breaking Bad. What would you add to that list in like the last 5 or 6 years?
In terms of television series?
Well, just like what would go on the list of like the Hall of Hero, like what would be a show that deserves to be?
There's so few that come around that really deserve accolades like that.
There's so many though that I feel like I'm sure I've missed something.
Before season 8, Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, Game of Thrones. I forgot about that.
It deserves to be forgotten. Seriously, screw that show.
Oh my god. Well, I mean, it. Yeah, okay. It's like a wedding where someone died, and it was someone people liked.
Taboo
was pretty darn good.
I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I can't believe we did a whole shot by shot on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's comedies and there's other like. I guess this Schitt's Creek is supposed to be great.
I would honestly say the first season, not necessarily the second, and absolutely not the third, but the first season of Westworld was that for me. I freaking loved that.
Yeah, Westworld had potential. Huh. Well, anyway, what do you guys think in the comments? Maybe there's some show that we haven't. Downton Abbey. Sopranos and Downton Abbey, man. 1, 2. You know, when I watched Downton Abbey, I just had a breakup. I dumped a girl, and it was devastating for both of us. But for me, I'm a sensitive man. I was crying a lot. Anyway, I was super depressed, and I watched 2 shows. I watched Jersey Shore and Downton Abbey. I was covering some ground, and yep, that's why I have a podcast about Jersey Shore that I've never told you about.
Ooh, yeah, I would rather have my eyes ripped out than watch Jersey Shore.
It's a good show. Cool. Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, this is the point where it has like 0 viewers flashing at the bottom.
That's okay. I think, there's enough weird randomness we've established through our banter that people might still be on board. Like and bend the knee and check it. Really looking for people to come over on Twitch if you're into politics. It's not just like it is always. And I'm going to put myself on camera soon. Well, I got to lose. I don't need to lose weight to do it. I look fine, but honestly, I just don't feel ready for it. But I got shrimp. We play cool music. I feed the shrimp. They're hardworking employee. I mean, they're great people. They're not people. They're shrimp. They're little shrimps. They swim around. They're real.
Don't be shrimpist.
Don't be shrimpists. Don't be part of the shrimpiarchy. Shrimpocracy.
They're crustaceans, or are they?
They're invertebrates. Yeah,
but are they crustaceans though?
It's the perfect channel for people who love the spineless.
But do they have like the outer armor?
Exoskeleton?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're crustaceans.
So like little sea bugs.
They are, yeah. If that's what makes it easier to swallow them.
Little like aquatic roaches.
That's lobsters, my friend.
But the shrimp has got to be like related. It's like a distant cousin to the lobster, right?
Yeah. It's related to the manta ray. No. The mantis shrimp. Mantis.
Oh, those things are scary.
They're like the coolest, the most alien animal on the. They can see UV wavelengths that we can't see, and they have. Like pound for pound, the strongest.
Break your knuckle easily.
They smash their shit.
Yeah, I saw one break open a clam, and the top comment on the video was, imagine you're just a cool clam who put all your skill points into defense. You're just in the dark, chilling out, having fun, and suddenly your front door gets busted open, and you see this gigantic, terrifying alien creature start sucking you out of your home.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god. Yeah. Nature's scary.
It is. Mantis shrimp are amazing. Yeah, they're crustaceans. I saw a cooking show once where they're talking about lobsters, and the guy's like, to get over killing them while they're alive, which you can freeze them, boil them, stab them. You gotta do something.
Boil and mash them, put them in the stew.
Mm-hmm.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yeah. Nice crispy bacon.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the guy goes, just think of it like a cockroach, just like you're killing. It's like, dude, you're teaching people how to cook. They don't want to think of the meal about their eat as a 1.5 foot long cockroach.
That's how I think about it, and that's why I would never touch lobster. Just seeing a lobster makes me recoil in horror.
Yeah, I know. I have shrimp. I cook shrimp sometimes, and I will occasionally have a bowl of shrimp and thawing out, and then I realize how horrifying it is that James has to see these shrimp.
I was going to get water one night, and I opened the fridge, and the bowl was open with nothing on the top, and it was right under where I put my cup for the water. I was like, ugh!
I'm sorry. I try to remember, and I usually do, but I did not in that case. So, yeah, didn't mean to traumatize you.
The scar is deep.
Yeah.
That's the worst problem in my life right now.
No, you have a breathing issue and a heart problem that needs surgery. So
no, shrimp goes higher.
Doctor, I got a bowl of shrimp in my fridge. Anything I can do about this? All right, enough rambling. Love everybody. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. You deserve to feel better. You deserve to be paid more. You deserve to have some power in your life and over your future and your workplace and your relationships. Not power in a crazy way. I'm just saying, people, don't be embarrassed at demanding that your life gets better, because it should. You're alive and you're valuable. James, give him some affirmations.
No, everything you said except for those dirty Canadians.
Those fucking Canadians! Fucking Trudeau!